like cut. I would pay them first to make them feel special, make them feel rewarded, so they know that they're contributing and they're adding value to the world because it makes me happy. That's where I gain my value. That's where my bonus is. I would never fuck over my people so that I could earn more money. Like that to me makes no sense. Like I don't give a crap. Like it's just money. You not like I'm not gonna take it with me when I die. What I'm gonna take with me is like the memories of the with the people that I spent life with.
Would I be correct in saying that your economic view is more leftish leaning then?
No, I don't think that's a leftist. You see, that's the problem. That's from an American perspective, it's more leftist leaning. But if
Hmm.
you go back to and there's a historian dude that actually explored this, Metatron. He's a Greek dude. Like you should check out his channel. He's very very wise in that sense. He's got a lot of, but he's very anti woke as well because he understands. I think he's one of the few sober minded people that understands why we are where we are now and why we cautioned against wokeness because we understood that if you push enough and you push the people that have the most power to fuck you over, this is where you'll end up. And what I mean by that, and I'll just put a little bit of context before answering your question, is if you look at like what's happening now, this is an overreaction for such a stupid thing, which is as simple as pronouns. I promise you, if we had not been under that all that nonsensical overselling of wokeness, we would not be in this situation now with Donald Trump and Elon Musk, these two trolls running the world. But it had to happen because for some reason people got a little bit of power and they got drunk on that power and they started abusing it and using it against the majority. And that is such a misconception of like you never need to use force if you're on the right side of history. Give things time, be patient, always try and do the right thing. And the right thing is, if you're on the right side of history, at no point in time are you pointing fingers at anyone or you're accusing anyone of anything. You are always almost like taking the virtuous route because you understand that your values will hold up at the end of the day. There's no force needed. That's what Mandela taught us in South Africa, that you never need to use force if you're righteous. And I think the world has lost that lesson. So just rephrase your question and I'll answer. Sorry.
Well, like on the issue with force, you would agree that some level of push can be needed, right? So, for example, if we were to talk about segregation or reallocating resources to the right
Mm,
people, like in South Africa, right? You don't just say, okay, well, everyone's equal now, because based on the laws that predated this situation, that came from apartheid, I should say.
yep.
Certain people have certain benefits. Because I was speaking to a friend about this. She's from Brazil. Now I don't know the accuracy of these things. You have to learn that like people say stories, and it might be half truths, right? But
Yeah.
anyway, but the story she told me was that the black people that were there, they were commissioned to build the schools, build houses, build roads. Develop the country,
What
and
is
then
this?
once
Brazil?
in Brazil. She said that
Okay.
and then what happened is then the government sends out a signal to the European countries saying, bring your people here. So then these people come and then they get, the kind of like the easy life, right? They get
Mm,
the schools, education, and her people, aka the black people, they didn't get these benefits. So years later,
yeah.
she's saying we're 10 steps backwards and they're forward. And then they look at us and they say, well, why aren't you leveling up? And she's thinking, my ancestor, my great granddad built the school that you're
Yeah.
that you're getting education, and he wasn't allowed to participate in that.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that sounds exactly like South Africa's situation. With like slight differences because of the fact that yes, I actually tried to study or look into South America's racial dynamics, and they are very complicated because they go beyond race and they go towards things like where you born in the respective country or were you born in, like for instance, for you to be white in South America, if you were white, let's say you're Spanish, right? Let's say you're from Argentina and you're Italian. Let's say it because that makes a little bit more. I think that's an easier example because the majority of Argentinians that are Caucasian, which I think they make up the majority of the country, they are from Italy. They are immigrants from Italy, or they are colonizers or whatever. I don't know how they want to phrase that. But if you look at the whatchamacallit, they have these really really weird rules about if you are born, let's say in Argentina or in Brazil, you're not considered white. But if you were born in Spain, or you can trace your bloodline directly to Spain, you are considered Caucasian or white. So their classification of who's white and who's not is even more complicated than, I would say, America and even us in South Africa. So I can understand where she's coming from with that sort of that happened. But in South Africa, something similar to that happened. But you see, Mandela did something that nobody ever did. This is why he's probably the most revered icon in the 20th century. Why so many European countries love him and they will always hold him up, and they will always hold South Africa up as part of that. Is he did something that none of them has ever done. He not only forgave his oppressor, he kept the oppressor. He didn't change no conditions for the oppressor in terms of saying, well, we're going to take these away from you, which is the first thing that any white nation would have done. They did the same thing with Germany when it was conquered. They did the same thing with Japan. But when apartheid was over, we didn't go in and go wilding on the same Afrikaners that are crying now. And it's not even the majority of Afrikaans people in South Africa. There's a minority of them that are very right wing, and those are the ones that are really sort of like causing all the cuck that you're seeing now with Trump. And as far as they're concerned, apartheid was the perfect system, and they were happy then, and they feel that everything that's happened then was like bullshit. But he saw that, he forgave them, and he saw their arrogance. With their arrogance, Tai, he still said, you know what? I'm gonna let you keep what we have, and I'm gonna have good faith that we will make this work. And as a result of that, the younger generation, the Zoomers, all hate Mandela. Well, not all, but like a majority of them. They hate Mandela because they feel that they were betrayed by them. They felt that they should have taken that stuff instead of saying, well, let everybody play on an equal playing field and let's see where it ends up. Which is where I feel that Elon is being an asshole. Because by him saying that, he had a choice to say, well, no, we'll confiscate. He didn't. He said, let us let diplomacy and democracy play itself out. Let us have, these acts, to sort of repatriate land and all that stuff. But like they won't see it that way because now they're using a very contemporary view to say, well, it's private property. You can't blah 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 blah. But I'm like, whoa. Well, all this property belonged to people and you kicked them off their land in the first place. But you're not willing to look at that.
Well, okay, so just a quick one on that. I can see why they're angry, right? I was talking to a friend about this a few days ago. In nations where the people are doing well, whether that be the migrants community, the traveler community, you're going to more than likely forgive, right? America doesn't look at Britain in a negative way because they don't like America's a superpower, like who cares about Britain, right? No one looks at the Germans in a negative way because France is doing well, Italy is doing well, everyone's doing well. If everyone's doing well, everyone's happy. China doesn't hate Japan as much, and neither does South Korea, even though they have like a very bad history. Because South Korea is a very good economy, and so is Japan, so is China. Everyone's winning. It's when people are losing that becomes a problem. And I was looking at South Africa stats yesterday because I was chatting with a friend, and the economy is primarily ran by the Oyibo people. You guys would call them more Africans. I don't know what you guys would call them. The Boers.
Yeah, well, I would say no, it's not really run by them. It's very Western run. Like if you look at the companies that run South Africa, South Africa is very complicated, dude. Like, so the Afrikaners are they are, like, I'll say exceptionally, they are probably, like, if I had to give you an example of the Afrikaners, and without sounding weird, they are like our Jewish people, right? They're like the Jewish people in America. That's how successful they are. They have an unusually they will be more successful than the closest white person to them, if that makes sense, right? So
Okay.
they've done exceptionally well because of the fact that they were Europeans that were able to adapt to Africa but could still bring those European principles in. However, a lot of their success was championed by the British early on. If you go back to our history, all the things that they're complaining about, like affirmative action, they were the first patrons of affirmative action, where the British, because they felt bad or because they felt guilty after the Anglo-Boer War, they gave them all these privileges and priorities over all the other South Africans, all the other, like for instance, the native blacks, the native Khoi, they got more rights. Like a lot of people don't understand that it's the British that created the apartheid system. They said we will prioritize, we'll put you guys at the front of the line. You guys will run everything in South Africa. We will basically hand over the country to you as white people. So they created, because how British or the British operated before then, they had relationships with the Zulu and all these other groups, especially the Zulu. So the people that should have gotten that priority should have been the Zulu, because they're the majority in this country, because of how close the British were with the Zulu. But because of what they done with the Afrikaners, or what they did to the Afrikaners, they gave them all that priority. And that this is when they were about to leave South Africa and sort of hand it over. That's when we were about to be we were still reporting to them. That's before we were a republic. But they then, by virtue of doing so, they created this sort of racist sort of system in South Africa. They sort of brought the inception of that in, and the Afrikaners just perfected it, which is something they're good at. Like, you give Afrikaners as a group of people something, they've got such a unique, and I can't say they're like very unique in terms of like their work ethic and how they focus is, that they will really drive something to perfection, which is what they did with apartheid. I mean, there's a reason like apartheid is not the only apartheid in the world, but it's the one that's most known because they engineered it.
They perfected it.
They perfected it. It's the same thing. Like, I look at Elon. Elon is a perfect example of someone who sort of has Afrikaner principles in terms of his upbringing, which is how most white people are brought up in South Africa. And which is why, aside from the fact that he probably has some autism that makes him sort of like
extraordinary,
but that work ethic, that Afrikaner work ethic helped, and the privilege of being born South African and living a life that is better than most white people in this world, which is what Afrikaners still enjoy in this country. They live a life that even Europeans, wealthy Europeans, do not enjoy. If you look at how much property they own, if you came to South Africa, you would actually think, you would understand what a joke it is to call these, or to offer them refugee status attire. If you look at, like, I've been to, sort of like, I don't know, you can't call them complex. I've been to like reservations, I suppose you can call them that, but land where they've literally built a close-off town, and this is not one of these. There's like hundreds of these in South Africa, where they've created a gated community where they have their own schools, they have their own churches, they have their own malls, and everything is walled off. Completely protected communities where it's just the richest of the rich, the wealthiest of the wealthy. And the problem is, the ones that are complaining are the ones that unfortunately did not benefit from apartheid. The ones that happened to just maybe be at the fringe of being normal when the country was being handed over. And they happen to get nothing. They're the ones that depend on government jobs or normal jobs that normal black people depend on. They're the ones that are angry, that got nothing. You understand? So they're so pissed off because of the fact that they feel that, they need to be considered as equal as the black majority who were robbed of 80% of like the opportunities and the land during apartheid.
I think everything you're talking about reminds me of what I read about Haiti and how it went down there as well. That there was like a class system as well, right, based on race. You're very, very black, you're at the very bottom, and then you were light skin, a bit better. Then you had these guys who were like, I think similar to what you were talking about with South America, how they were born in Haiti, but they weren't, because they weren't born in Europe, they were looked down upon. Like, oh yeah, you're born over here. Yeah. And it was those guys that were trying to like route things up and get everyone else like, fight the system. But they're just trying to take out the guys at the top. They wanted to replace the guys at the top, and then everyone else can, move on forward. But that plan didn't work out. So everyone rebelled at the bottom, and Haiti is now Haiti. But in terms of Nelson Mandela, would you say like so? For example, when I look up some stats in South Africa, it would say something like the white South Africans, for example, own 8% of they're 8% of the population, but they own 72% of like the land, and
No,
that's not
that's
true.
not entirely true. Like
Agricultural farming.
so it's very complicated. The people that own most of the land is something called the something trust, the Inzabal something trust, but it's the Zulus. The Zulus own the most land in South Africa, and this is because they got land during the time when the English were here. So they've got, in terms of like Western standards, they've got the most official land in South Africa. If you're looking for, there's a trust which belongs to the Zulus that literally sort of says that they have the most land in South Africa. What the Afrikaners have, or not even the Afrikaners, because the thing is with the Afrikaners that there's a very thin line between the Afrikaners and the Western world. What they own is probably most of the commercial, where you have your big cities and whatever. They own all that land. So when they talk about 70%, they're probably talking about commercial land where you have all your big metropolitans, all your cities, all your property in your very urbanized areas.
Well,
That's
hold
what they're
on.
talking about.
But this okay, so I know this stat is incorrect, but it says white South Africans who make up 8% of the population own approximately 72% of individually owned land, primarily agriculture and farming land. Yeah,
And
would you say
again,
that's
like,
correct?
yes, in terms of agricultural land, yes, they probably own 70% of it because they were the ones that did all the farming. So that is correct, but that's not all the land. That's not 70% of the land in South Africa. The majority of the land in South Africa belongs to two entities. It's the government, and it's a trust that belongs to the Zulu kingdom, the Zulu monarchy. They own most of the land. Like, well, the largest part of the land, which is in KZN, they own.
Okay. Would you say that Mandela, the issue there was he should have been a bit more forceful in
No,
taking back some of that 72% and
no,
distributing it against people who could farm who are black?
no, I don't think he should have forced. I think Mandela did exactly what he had to do the way he had to do it. And the reason I know that, Ty, is because of the fact that South Africa is in a better position right now economically than any other country that's taken those exact measures. No country
Like
that has taken
Zimbabwe?
those measures. Sorry?
Like Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe did the same thing where they did that whole thing. Like, the thing is, you have to understand, dude, like, black suffering in this world and white suffering is not the same thing. And this is why I fucking hate what the Afrikaners are doing. Because if there was true Afrikaner atrocities happening in South Africa, my man, like, this wouldn't have been a conversation. They would have had the SEAL Team 6 here. They would have had fucking helicopters flying them out, taking out a whole bunch of freaking, whatever, militia, if there was a militia. But the reason they're not doing any of that, because there's none of that is true. All of that is a fallacy based on the fact that these people see that, or these people that are saying these things think that the lives of the people that look like them are more valuable than anyone else's lives. The truth about South Africa is it's a very violent society. We have violence, and they are also largely to blame for that violence because of what they did to to the black population. The sort of shit that they subjected the black population to is the shit that makes people develop in very inhumane ways, and they will not take responsibility. They'll always look at it and say, "Well, no, for 30 years the ANC has been in power," and I'm like, bro, but who created this condition in the first place? You did. You created the amounts of violence. Mind you, if you go and look at the statistics, the most victimized person in South Africa is a black male. That's the most killed person. It's the most violated in terms of deaths. There's more black males that die every day than any other group in South Africa. But they'll never talk about that. They'll always put themselves first, which are probably, like, if you look at like their death rates versus the black death rates or the colored death rates, are like a fraction of that.
Yeah, no, I get you. It's this is a interesting topic anyway. At least with the land stuff, right? Because I did read up that it was yeah, in terms of farming land. And I think I understand where people are coming from, right? Just because I've always said, hey, listen, people are always going to rebel. They're always going to push back if no one's
Yeah.
doing well. Like, in Ireland ourselves, we have it's not bad. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to compare it, but in terms of from a privileged point of view, we have some issues going on here, and if the government had acted in the right way, this would have been mitigated. I'm looking at what's happening in Germany right now, and it's this kind of same thing that you were saying, that like when the left took so much power and control, and they just overdid things, overplayed their hand.
Bro.
Now people have moved towards the right, and people have moved towards the center.
And it's
you
so
have
silly.
these people, specifically these people these Germans I was like listening to, and they were saying how like I don't even like these people on the right. I hate them, but
Yeah.
they're dealing with the problem that I think is the most serious one right now.
Exactly.
And when I try to tell people that this is a serious problem, they gaslight me and tell me I'm racist, I'm this, I'm that. So at the end of the day, I've decided to support these guys so they fix a problem, and hopefully I can go back to the left when they make common sense. So that's a general feedback that I've been seeing among these people.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. Like in South Africa is very complicated. Like just America is complicated. But I'm so glad that Elon is doing this. I'm so glad that Donald Trump is doing this, because my thing was always that, you know what, at the end of the day, like like there was too much protect. Like I feel for the longest time, what made the left so cocky is that they forgot the fact that the left in the West, anyways, came from a position of how can I say, where you had the moral higher ground, but you were not in charge of government structures. But what the stuff that you promoted was always the right thing. You could have more power than me, but I knew that I had the moral right. But when the left started doing shit like where now they were fucking destroying people's lives, they were making policies like that could force you. Like for me, like I feel that COVID did a lot of things to change the world. All that forced mandates and all that bullshit, like dude, that's not leftist. That's fear mongering. There's nothing about that was progressive, dude. Forcing people to wear masks, forcing people to wear because you're scared. No, like and you've got no science behind it. You're just scared. That's the science behind what you're doing, is that, well, we're scared, so we have to act in these drastic ways that will ruin people's lives. No, dude. Like, and I feel that that's where they.
COVID is where we like separate, because I think everything is really about the details, right? So of course I always tell people like every country have their own rules. So I'll speak to friends who are a bit like the right, and they're like, oh, everyone did this, and I'm like, well, what did your country do? Because you can tell me what Americans did. I know what they did, but even with that, you can't even tell me what they did, because New York did something, Texas did something else, everyone did something else, right? And I had Europeans telling me about Fauci, and I'm like, yeah, but like, what did your health minister say in your country? Like,
Bro.
what did the Europeans say?
Bro, like the problem I have is that the fact that like our government, as much as they're beefing with America now, when the leftists are in charge, or when the Democrats are in charge, they like, dude, they will. In fact, it wasn't even the leftists. They put these policies after Trump. This is how like and this is why I hate our government, is because they're such a go along to get along. This whole thing of them defying the West for Israel is the first time they've acted against the West. And of course, them having to side with Russia recently. But our government went with every rule that the West put in. Whatever Fauci said was done here as in America. As a result, we had the same bullshit here that we had in America. And to me, like, that's the worst time in my entire life living on this planet. Like, and I couldn't understand this thing of like, well, like the whole social distancing and a lot of those rules made no sense to me, because nobody tried to explain them scientifically. And now that they're actually going back and looking at that shit, they're saying, well, masks didn't really, there was no scientific proof that masks made a difference. Like, a lot of the shit that they put in place was not tested, but because of the fact that they were trying to protect a class of people, they took the most drastic measures possible. And I don't think it was to protect the majority. It was to protect a class of people that they felt were vulnerable.
Okay, so I don't believe that the idea that masks don't do anything. They do something. I mean,
no,
there might be
bro.
some,
Like, there's no science
on
behind it.
how effective.
Go look at this. Go look at, like, just Google the effectiveness of masks. None of it. Like, Fauci went on when he was being like questioned or tried or whatever. he went on and he said that like they had no proof that masks would make a difference.
No, I don't believe that.
But they, dude, Google it.
Okay, that's one.
Google it,
Are masks effective at reducing
please,
the spread of?
of COVID.
Oh, okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be COVID. It could be any virus, really. Okay. Yes, masks are effective at reducing the spread of COVID-19, particularly when used correctly and in combination with other preventive measures. Here's a concise breakdown based on scientific evidence. Source control masks, especially well-fitted ones like N95, K95, or surgical masks, are highly effective at reducing the spread of the virus from an infected person to others. I guess the question here is like, why have Asians been doing this all this time? Why do doctors wear masks during surgical procedures? Clearly it does something. You can make a claim that it's not as effective as people think it is, but to say that it's not effective, it is. So if you consider social distancing and you consider mask, then yeah, you're in a much better position. That's why, for example, in Dublin, in Ireland, when the government said, okay, you can all hang out now and you don't have to use masks as much, the cases went up like crazy. Hospitals got flooded like literally like weeks later. Like there was a direct correlation between people hanging out together and not wearing masks and this happening. That's why the UK was so bad. Like I was in the UK. I was there and I'm in a shopping mall and these people have no mask. They don't care about nothing. And everybody will say that UK is one of the worst countries in Europe with this with this issue. And yeah, because they didn't give a shit. Now,
but like, you know what the problem I have with this is the amount of yes buts. Like, yes, masks can be effective when used with measures such as getting
no. Mask is effective, full stop, right?
No,
but
bro, like
it's effective, full stop. But when you consider different measures, it's kind of like, for example, right? If you don't want to get into a car crash, you put on your seatbelt, you don't drive fast. Like those two things together will help.
But man, that's like used. Like if I ask you, are condoms effective, and you say, well, yes, condoms are effective if you also use contraceptives. And like, bro, come on, like,
are we turning down like multiple protections now?
That's what I'm saying. Like, why are masks effective when like the only people that put those sort of disclaimers on their shit are people that like sell you diet pills. They always say like when they're selling their pills, like, well, this pill will be said, it will be effective if you do the following. You follow a balanced diet. You drink X amount of water.
No. You jumping
now.
It's saying masks are effective and they're more effective when you combine all these other things together. So social distancing is effective. We all know that. Like, let's say social distancing is 2%. But you got a mask, now it's 4%, right? That's what we're talking about. We're building up the defenses to not get infected.
No, dude, like, no.
Right. Listen. Let's be clear.
I'm not gonna argue with you.
I got a really bad flu when I was over in on the cruise, and like people ask me like, oh, like how'd you think you get it? And I'm saying, well, number one, I'm on a boat with like thousands of people. We're using the same elevator. I saw the lunch place. It's a buffet, which is cool, and people can wash their hands. But I'm sure people ain't washing their hands. We're all picking the same spoons up. Same thing. People are walking around. Some people are coughing. Like, you can see why. I'm also telling them like, hey, listen, the air conditioner sucks, so it gets very cold then very hot, very cold, very hot. I'm going outside, in the pool, jumping, and then I'm getting out. It's getting a bit cold in here. Like, I'm telling them like 5 reasons that all led to me getting a cold. I didn't just say there was one thing, because normally that's not what it is. Normally there's a combination of factors coming together that allows you that enables you to get sick faster. There's this thing, I can't remember what it's called, but basically it says that if you ever wake up and you have sniffles in your nose or whatever it is, it's because you have a layer on your skin that protects you, and that layer gets damaged whenever it's cold. Doesn't mean you actually have the cold or flu, but because that layer gets damaged, it's easier to get a cold. Now, if you're living in a house full of people who are sick, then you're more likely going to get sick. Like, it's all a combination of things together.
Well, I agree with you.
Listen, this is Elon Musk's freaking AI I'm using, and it's telling me, like, masks are effective for sure.
Okay, cool. So let me concede that. Like, if you're saying that scientifically, but like, I recently just, because I was following this thing with him being grilled, and he was asked if he had actual proof when he when they sanctioned the usage of masks. And again, as a South African, I know that when the moment they said that, well, we're going to use masks in America, they did the same thing here because we're following their prescriptions because they were part of the World Health Organization, blah, 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 blah. And they were sort of setting all those sort of parameters for all of us. But like when he was grilled about that, like, did they have evidence to show that masks would reduce the spread of COVID? He said no, they didn't. They had no evidence to prove or like suggest that they could, but they made that decision and made it mandatory for masks to be whatchamacallit.
But do you know what's so crazy? Because whenever people talk about Fauci, they bring up very selected quotes or points, and they never look at everything in totality. So, for
Yeah.
example, I just did another, AI search, and I said, listen, what did Dr. Fauci say about masks during COVID-19? And it says Dr. Fauci's statements on masks during COVID-19 pandemic evolved over time as scientific understanding of the virus and its transmission improved, and as public health priorities shifted. And below is a summary. Early in the pandemic, February to March 2020, Dr. Fauci advised against widespread mask wearing by the general public. In an interview in 60 Minutes, there's no reason to be walking around with a mask, he emphasized. Now, then there's email correspondence.
But can I stop you there? So this man is saying this, right? Based on what evidence?
Well, hold on. He says there's no reason to be wearing a mask, emphasizing that masks were primarily for infected individuals to prevent spreading the virus and that they were not providing perfect protection for healthy people. I mean, I think most people will kind of understand that, right? Most people will kind of think, yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense, yeah. And then what was the reason that changed?
So shifting guidance, support for wearing masks. By April 2020, as evidence emerged about asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic transmission, Fauci and other public health officials began recommending masks for the general public. On April 3rd, 2020, the CDC updated its guidelines, and Fauci publicly supported wearing mask face coverings in public settings, especially where social distancing was difficult. He emphasized masks as a tool for source control. So this is not like, hey, if you don't wear a mask, you're going to gulag. He's saying, I support it.
But like that, the government, like in my country, you would be arrested. You would not be given access to, like, I couldn't go shop if I didn't have a mask. If I didn't have a mask in certain designated areas, I could get arrested by the police.
Yeah, but you see, I don't know if that's a leftish then.
Huh?
Like I was talking about like left leaning and right leaning. I'm trying to say,
but Americans did that as well. Like, there's people that got fired from their jobs because they didn't wear masks.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to say, like, I don't think this is a leftish talking point. Like, this is,
No, it's not a left. Like, no, I'm not saying.
When Italy was collapsing, it wasn't about left or right. It was like, oh shit, people are dying.
Now, you see, I'm glad you brought up Italy. Now, if we're talking Italy and we're seeing those sort of numbers of deaths that we're seeing in Italy, and again with Italy, the problem was very simple. Is because of the fact that, like, look at how people live in Italy, bro. Like, people live on top of each other in terms of, like, there's apartment, and within those apartments, it's like a whole bunch of people living together as a family. You've got the older, and who was dying the most is that you find that Italy was one of the few communities where you had the grandparents living with the grandchildren, the middle family. So you had all these different generations. So what that means to me, and of course, like, I think generally how it played out, is that a lot of the older population, because of the fact that the kids are going to go out, the grandkids are going to go out, and everyone is going to be out there and come back and bring it, the vulnerable older generation would get COVID. And that's why you had such a huge death rate, is because a lot of people's grandparents were dying because they're directly exposed to people bringing COVID into the house on a daily basis. So in Italy, I would definitely say masks are mandatory because of the fact that how critical it was. But in countries like us, when we had zero death rates, like, we had for the longest time the lowest death rate. We were below, like, we were on the bottom 5%. But the regulations were so strict, dude. We couldn't buy alcohol for almost over a year.
So here's what I think, right? I'm sure this point has been echoed before. When COVID happened, people didn't know what to do. There's a lot of confusion as to how serious it is. And when you see partner countries taking a step back,
Hmm.
closing up shop, you think you should follow. Then you see news about what happened to Italy, and nobody wants that to happen to their nation.
Yeah.
Sweden, from what I remember hearing, they made a conscious decision to say we're going to keep the economy open. We're going to keep doing things. And at some point, the death rates increased, and
Hmm.
eventually, I think it was a politician who said the trade-off wasn't really worth it. We kept the economy open, but
I remember that. Yeah,
because
I
everyone else was
remember that.
closed, we didn't really do well, and then we
Mm.
just killed all these people. Basically, we just made decision to kill people,
Mm.
and yeah, it kind of sucks. And I remember saying to to a friend that s- there's a Swedish president or prime minister or whatever you want to call him. He's there and he has his advisors, and somebody tells him, "Hey, listen, if we do this, keep the economy open, we make money, we're all about profit, but people are gonna die.
Yeah.
But if we do this other option, well, we save people, but the economy takes kind of tanks a little bit." And the
Hmm.
fact that that person is there deciding which one to pick, and he chose the option that he knew will lead to people dying. Do you not think that's a bit of there's something about that that sounds quite like like disgusting to me? And I think when we care about people, we kind of err on the side of caution, and we say screw the economy for a little bit. Let's try to make sure
Yeah, but
everyone's
like,
in a better position.
you see, that is the superhero conundrum of like, well,
Well, you
to
are the
save.
superhero, right? You're the one who doesn't want to, do the genophage.
No, but like, well, this is, yeah, well, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, is that's the conundrum that you have, as if you are a altruistic, superhero like Captain America slash Superman type archetype. Do you let the hundreds die so you can save the thousands? Or do you let the thousands die so you can save the hundreds of thousands? Because to me, if you're looking at the bigger picture, you look at the economy, you understand that more people will suffer, and especially in a country like South Africa, where I feel that like letting just COVID go the way it did so much more damage to our economy than if you had taken less measures, because the amount of like crucial things like sources of economy that closed down, that meant that more people were unemployed. There was more violence against communities in a country that's already probably got some of the highest violence stats in the world. Is that really wise? Because now you are sort of condemning a lot of people to die. Well, you're saying, well, you know what, we're gonna spare people from dying from natural causes, maybe 100 people, but 10,000 people in the next 5 years or 5 to 10 years are gonna die because of the fact that the effects of that messed up economy is gonna kill more people. That's the conundrum. There is the fact that, in my opinion, letting factories close down, letting people lose their jobs because of the fact that companies can't keep them because there's too many laws that are restricting them from doing business, doing all those things, you are killing tens of thousands of people. Like, this is the same thing I always say about capitalist economies, like where like it's so easy for you to say, well, we're laying off 1,000 people because you're doing it according to the system of the law. You're not considering that there's a lot of people that are gonna die and are gonna suffer as a result of that.
Yeah, but okay. So my pushback there would be there's a known factor of how it's gonna like how many people is gonna get hurt by this decision. However, with the right amount of stimulus and package, you can get your country out of that slump. You can actually help people, social welfare, put in place programs. England did a pretty decent job. Everybody who that told to not work, the government just paid them off. Because okay, in the meantime, we think this is gonna blow over. We're pretty sure it is. So we're just gonna pay you so to keep you afloat. And when this thing does blow over, the economy is going to bounce back, and people go out again. The cinema will open, the shops will open. You can go to the restaurants, the airlines, Ryanair, EasyJet. It's all going to open up, which is exactly what happened. So if you chose that decision to say, you know what, let's just keep things open, there's one thing that's going to definitely happen, which is people will suffer. The at least the elderly or the people who are weak, and So I think most countries made the right decision. But the point then again, but the point still is that it's not a leftish talking point. And I think what people have done is they've taken certain things that really shouldn't be, and they've almost framed it as, okay, this is a you're a left leaning person now. The idea that somebody thinks not wearing a mask or to wear a mask is some kind of like symbolism of of how they feel against the group of people is
But
bizarre.
like, whoa, but like, why is that, Ty? Because of the fact that how crazy people were acting if you're not wearing masks. How many videos did you see of weirdos acting out of or going out of their minds because you didn't wear a mask? Like, if you're wearing a mask, then that's fine. You protect yourself. Why the fuck are you losing your mind because I'm not wearing a mask? It's the insanity that happened from the left because of the fact that they started canceling people because of the fact that canceling was a thing that was in, and they just started canceling people for not doing shit like wearing masks. I'm like, bro, one person not wearing a mask is not gonna freaking kill everyone.
Well, no, not
Why
again,
did they
because
overreact like
they
that?
can
If
they can overreact, but I think there's something that's really important, right? So
and then the
we can
government
find
reacted as they
isolated.
overreacted,
Well,
right?
we can find isolated incidents of people who are going crazy about the mask stuff. That's fine. That's fair. That's gonna happen. But the vast majority of people who are not doing this, they're not going crazy. They're just being reasonable. The part
If
that
the
I think is
government,
irritating is when
but
situations where a company, if a company says you have to wear a mask, then you have these freaking losers saying, I refuse. What do you mean you refuse? Who do you think you are? You know, I'm the same person where I say companies have their
yeah,
autonomy to do what they want to do. If you don't like it, don't go in. So when a restaurant says you have to wear a mask, and then you have these videos of these people who refuse and say, I'm not going to wear one, you can't make me. It's like, well, who the hell are you to infringe on their rights that they're enacting for themselves and their Patreons, right? Do you not think it's extremely selfish that a company has decided this is our policy, and the customers are happy to go to that establishment because they actually maybe like the idea of this policy. Then some Ushers guy comes in, strolls right in, not wearing a mask, and says, "I refuse to leave. This is my establishment. Like I don't care how you feel. I'm
yeah.
just gonna do this." So we have videos on both sides of people being extreme. Yeah, of course, this is true. But generally, the point I will say is that if you're outside, I mean, if you wanted to wear a mask or not, I mean, that's your business. But if you wanted to go to a shop, a place, a business, an establishment, then you follow the damn laws. End of story.
Yeah, I'm happy. Like, yeah, no, no, like, Ty, like, you know what? I don't feel very strongly about this subject, so I don't feel that like we should take up too much time on it. But
Yeah,
like,
sure, yeah, yeah.
I'll concede this that like you know what I get where the and again this is all the paranoia that led to the events that we have now with Donald Trump being elected is that a lot of people clearly felt that way, right?
Hmm.
I as much as I don't feel that strongly, even in South Africa, dude, like I was pissed off daily because of the amount of shit the amount of restricted access I was given. At work, they forced us to go and take like both of the vaccines at the company I was working at the time, like because they said like, well, if you don't have the vaccine, then you can't come to the office, and how are you gonna do your job? How are we gonna keep you on? And like they literally forced you to do that. They didn't give you a choice. And then my thing is like, Jesus fuck, in my own country, I don't even have a choice in terms of like what I put in my own body. You guys are forcing me to put something in my body to be able to continue. You're telling me you're not gonna come up with any other measure. That's where I come from in terms of like to me that shit was some bullshit. But if you, I'm willing to concede that there was both, you know, because it was such an unknown situation, both people were working from blind sides. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, the last one was I had some friends who refused to obviously take the vaccine and all these kind of things, and they'll tell me all the conspiracy theories that it's the government trying to screw over black people, etc., etc., etc. And I'll point out that black people are one of like the least people to take the actual COVID vaccine.
Yep.
And I point out that like you don't think it's crazy that when you go to like your local clinic, it's full of white people. I think the most interesting conspiracy, or I think the best conspiracy, is COVID happens, and then you convince black people that you're actually trying to kill them with the vaccine, so they don't take it, and then because they don't take it, they actually die off. Like that just seems like such a smart plan, and I keep relaying this to them that like you keep telling me it's trying to screw over black people, but why are white people taking it? Unless you're trying to tell me that the vaccine will affect black people differently, and if that's true, then show me evidence of that. None.
Yeah.
There's always none. It's always based on some kind of conspiracy
Yeah,
nonsense.
and you know what the problem is, like right now, like you have a situation, and I'm glad this is happening. The inmates are running the asylum, which I'm glad, like, because I feel that America for the longest time has had this thing where they believe that the people just unanimously believe in the government and the system, and the fucking problem with that is that they built, as a result of that, they created so much bureaucracy that they can no longer problem solve. Like, I was watching Jon Stewart talking to the Secretary of Defense, and she's trying to explain how they lost billions when they were giving money to Ukraine. And she's trying to explain how that is not unethical, corrupt, or incompetent. And then she's basically saying, no, we don't know where the money is, but it doesn't mean that we lost it through corrupt means or incompetence. And then Jon Stewart just says to her, but like, you know what? If I hired you and I gave you hundreds of billions to look after, and you lost that money and you couldn't tell me what happened to it, I would call that incompetence. Like, or like, I mean, it's obvious. Like, you don't know what you like. That is your job. Like, how are you? And this is not small money. You didn't lose $10. You lost billions. Like, like really? Like, come on. Like, you need. And again, as a result of that, they're being exploited now by people who have an actual agenda. Like my man's, the
Elon.
second Mansa, Elon. Like, and again, like right now, everybody's like caught with their pants down. I believe in the long run, this is not gonna. This whole thing is gonna be a shit show. I understand Donald Trump enough to know that this term is not gonna end with him being friends with Elon. That breakup is gonna be a nasty one. I know that. Like, that's where we're going. We're going to a nasty breakup, a nasty fight between Elon and Donald Trump. And I think Elon is, yeah, he's yeah, no, he's.
I don't know what the end goal is, because if you fight with Trump, you're fighting with a large portion of the Republican Party, the MAGA
But
fan base.
but I don't even think that's it though. Like, go look at like the cult that Elon has got on Twitter, bro. Like,
That cult, though, they like Elon, but I think that they like Trump more.
well, I think the Americans ones like sort of do. Like, I'll be curious. I don't know how this is gonna play out. I want to see when they beef who the mega heads gonna, whose side they're gonna take, because none of these people, all these people are like very grifterish in their mentality. Like, they're just looking for
They're
ever who.
grifterish, but I think that Trump is a bit too powerful. He controls a lot. I think no one can actually just go against Trump. You know, I think Elon is
I don't know.
seems
Like,
like one of Trump's henchmen, and that's kind of it.
I don't believe that, bro. When Elon brings his son, his fucking drooly son, into the White House, have him drool and fucking like wipe his snot on the fucking whatchamacallit table like it's nothing. Like, nobody's ever done that. Like, he just randomly strolls in there and start talking to freaking who has, like, we've all believed this as long as we've lived. I think we've all believed that, like, well, yeah, politicians are in the pockets of billionaires, right? But which billionaire has walked into the White House and just said, yeah, you know what? We're having a press conference. I'm bringing my son and the rest of my snot-nosed kids. They can wipe their snot on the president's table.
But I think the reason why that's happening is because of just Trump himself. It's not really necessarily about like Elon. Like, Trump has kind of changed so many norms within like the White House or his presidency. He's doing things that people did. I mean, the first time he did things people didn't expect, and this time it's going to pretty much be the same thing. So Elon
But
can
like,
do what he wants, and pretty much listen. You know, someone pointed out that like it was one of Trump's donors. Can't remember her name, but she's, you know, a Zionist, and she's one of Trump's largest donors. So the fear was that Trump is going to support Palestine. He's going to say something crazy, and then Trump says, "Yeah, we're going to take over Gaza." Like that's not a normal thing to say. So I think this whole administration itself, like, it's possible to see these things happen. Yeah, so I wouldn't look at Elon and say, I think he does have his fan base. I think he's going to do well, but you can't go against Trump. Like, you lose every time.
But okay, so if okay, looking at Elon and looking at the like, so if you look at everything that's happening now, excuse me, if you look at everything that's happening now between Elon and Trump, and like the amount, excuse me, the amount of decisions or the amount of just like control that Elon has had, or the amount of influence that Elon has had, including the fact that, like, I think everyone sort of is on board to say that Elon is largely responsible for the fact that Trump is even in the office.
No.
Don't you think those things play a factor? Like the fact that, like, do you think, like, okay, like, I say this, the one thing that put Trump over to the point that, like, I was sure that Trump was gonna win was him almost getting assassinated or getting killed. However, the second most powerful or pillar in his campaign was Elon being behind him 100% and sort of saying all the right things in the right circles, which is like a lot of the social media people were getting the right messages, whereas all the messages from the Democrats were not coming through as well as. And again, if you go back to his first campaign where he won, it wasn't Twitter that put him over, it was Facebook and the amount of conspiracies on Facebook that put him over. So right now you had Elon understanding that, using that tool to his advantage, to the point that he became the primary campaigning tool behind Trump's entire campaign.
Yeah, so
no other donor can just walk into Trump's office and with his, in such a disrespectful way, not even a diplomat. He didn't even walk in there with a suit. He's there with a fucking cap and a casual t-shirt, and he just there with these snot-nosed kids on his back, and he just gets there and he gets to talk to. Where has that ever happened in the history of America before? Where one man has that much power over the president, that you can visibly see him use that power in public. And whenever Trump is announcing things, this dude is literally espousing Trump's policy on Twitter during like his troll tweets. Now it's done. Yes, we're doing this. We're impeaching those judges. Like where has a man ever been able to do that on a social media platform? Walk into the White House, speak on behalf of the president in the country with diplomats, with impunity, with no oversight.
So just a quick one. I want to check into real quick. As of 2024, approximately 19% of the US consumers are active users on Twitter, which translates to around 55 million people. This figure reflects a decline from the previous years, as in 2023, blah, blah, blah. It was estimated that 27% of the population, around 77 million people, were active users. If you were to divide that between, what's leaning left or right, 20% of the population, maybe I should actually type that in. What's percentage?
Do you think there's some leftists left on Twitter?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's
all of them are busy having a freaking morning there over at Blue Sky. Like, it's just such a gay. That platform is so. It's like it's such a cope platform. Like, I really hate what that platform is, because these guys should be on Twitter causing cuck for Elon. They should be calling him out on everything. They should be. I don't understand why they're all chilling on Blue Sky crying and like it doesn't change anything. Like, you're not challenging anyone else. You just want an echo chamber where people are gonna tell you exactly what you want to hear, instead of going to challenge the assholes that you don't believe should be in charge of your country.
Okay, so here's what I think. Here's what the stats say. It says as of 2024, approximately 47% of American Twitter users are Republican or right leaning. This represents a significant shift from 2022 when only 31% identified. So it has grown. So if basically in that 27% of the population users, it's kind of saying half of that on Twitter. And I think most people on Twitter are already going to vote for Trump. Look, you don't need Elon to vote for Trump. If you already like what Elon's
But
saying, you're going to vote for Trump. Now, here's something I think is really
yeah,
important: is that what made Trump win to me? If the economy is fine, the Democrats win. If people's perception of the economy is fine, the Democrats win. But because people's perception of the economy was crap, that is what made Trump win,
no,
right? Also, the migration issue. Those are the two main factors that made Trump win. If you were to take away Elon, Trump still wins 100%. If you took away all the woke stuff, like all the binary this, trans this, whatever you want to call it, Trump still wins.
I
Because
don't
the
think
two
so.
main
I don't think so. I think it's the wokies. The wokies pissed off everyone so much because they're in everything. Like, dude,
no
the
no no
moment
because
the
from in the polling, whenever you
yeah,
actually checked
but the
people,
polling has always been wrong, Ty. Like the
no no no
polling
no
said that
no
the
no no
Democrats were gonna win.
no. I mean, which polling were you looking at? Some polls said like Trump is gonna could take it,
No,
but
but like the
whenever you
polling
ask the
that
people, what's the
which
main
people,
issue in
the
the
dude,
polls? What's your main concern? It was never the woke stuff. It was
bro,
always the economy
no,
and migration.
who was being asked that question? Like they
No,
were
no.
asking,
Wait. If you were to ask your average Republican household, like average American,
yeah.
no, sorry, not even Republican, just average American, not remember.
Average Republican. Ask them how concerned are they by about the fact that their kids are gonna be indoctrinated by woke people. Ask them.
You think they care about that more than
I
illegal
think
migrants coming
yes,
in?
absolutely.
No,
Because of
you're
the fact no,
so
because of the fact that like bro, like a migrant can like what impact does a migrant have versus a teacher telling my kid to believe in ideology that I don't believe in? Think about that. Like a migrant is gonna get a job like as a whatever. Like why do I care as an American that has a good like I own my own business or I work for this organization. Why do I care if a migrant gets in and gets a menial entry level job and he like why is that more important than me than who's teaching my kids and what they're teaching my kids? Do I want my kids to learn about the fact that there's a million different whatchamacallit sexual orientations, and that you could be any. You think people take that shit lightly, Tai? Do you think that is the thing that most parents like said enough is enough? So now you want
but
to
you
tell
see,
how
no,
you educate my
I see
kids?
what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that wasn't even that high because the thing that people feel the most, and whatever
According
that
to
person is,
what? According to what?
nearly pretty much every poll was saying that
And
people's main
that's my
concern,
problem with American polls.
people's main
American
concern,
polls,
no, but people's main concern was the economy. Like everybody said, this inflation was high,
I don't
right?
disagree that the economy was.
Like even in Europe, everyone got wiped out because the
So
economy was
okay,
bad.
so which American policy was Donald Trump gonna put in that was better than what the whatchamacallit the Democrats had?
It's not even about I mean, you mean from a migration point of view or from an
No, I'm
economic
just
point of
saying
view?
what economic policy that did he say
It
that was
wasn't.
the game changer?
Well, but here's the thing, though. Trump never goes into details. All he just says
So
is, "I'm
why
gonna
did people no? But
because
that's the thing. Okay, but
Trump speaks in slogans."
okay, so what in I'm gonna fix it was different from what the Democrats were saying.
The Democrats were seen as the people who initiated the high inflation that occurred, right? Whenever
And you can disprove that factually because of
No,
the
no,
fact
no.
that
You
like
can disprove it factually, but people feel is very different from trying to like
so
argue with
okay,
them, right? So if you
fair enough.
feel that your purse or your wallet has been hit, you're always gonna have a protest vote. You gotta remember, this wasn't just America. This happened across the board in Europe as well.
Fine.
In
Okay.
Ireland, the my friend was saying how he thought that the people on the right were gonna win a whole lot more. but they didn't. And then when he checked out the responses, it's because people were actually happy with the economy in this country. So that's showing you that the biggest factor to win an election is the economy, and more than likely is then migration.
So, like, was the economy bad under Biden versus Trump?
Well, I mean, inflation happened, right? That was when everything was going up high.
No,
Now
yes,
he brought it back down, but it didn't matter
exactly.
because but people already felt it.
But like, my thing is then to you is that, like, do you think that was more impactful than everything else?
Oh,
Because
the economy, yes, 100%.
No, not the economy. The fact that, like, well, he could sell the story that, well, I brought down the economy, I brought down the inflation while I was in office, and he could tell the story. Like, the story was his to tell.
Biden.
Yes, it was Biden and Kamala's story to
the
tell.
inflation happened under him because under Trump things were good.
No, things were not good under Trump. Like, a
No,
lot of
they were better than the Biden administration, right?
well, considering the fact that, like, if you look at all the problems that, like, stemmed from later COVID came under Trump, and you could have used that as a selling point to say, "Whoa, hold up."
but hold on. But think about it, yeah. Why do you think Trump lost the election the first time?
It was because of the economy. The same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but the woke stuff was happening back then.
No. The woke stuff.
Yes.
Wait. Like, check this. So the woke stuff. Oh well, yeah, you're right. The woke stuff started under Trump because of the fact that the woke stuff came as response to Trump being president. A lot of it was a reaction to that, and the second part of it, where it got exacerbated, which is why I said no, was the George Floyd thing that happened. That just took things to the next level. But it started under Trump, and the fact that a lot of people were sort of like pushing back under Trump, pushing back under a president like Trump, blah 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 blah, all that backlash. But ultimately, after George Floyd, it just became worse, and how Trump responded to George Floyd made things worse. So that's where the woke stuff started. Like, that's where we started to really see that all that radical.
Yeah, I mean,
woke
we
stuff.
saw a larger push, but like before Trump got into office, the woke stuff was there, right? People were already
No, dude. Like, what woke
course
stuff
it
was
was
there before Trump? Please give me an example of something woke before Trump. Was it
Was
president?
cinema not woke? Was it not
Give me
becoming
an
woke?
example. Give me an example of woke cinema before Trump.
Okay, let me see.
Good luck.
Okay, but let's move on while I find something.
Let's move on to gaming, because like I think politics is like these conversations people have every day, but like nobody talks about the stuff in our actual interest thing, which is
Okay.
gaming stuff. Yeah, let's talk about, because that's what I wanted to talk about. Like, it's like there's all the gaming stuff that's been happening instead of the political stuff is always gonna be there for the next 4 years,
All right,
but
let
the
me get
gaming
my-
stuff is interesting.
Let me get my gaming stuff. The gaming notes I threw up.
But like, to summarize, my point is this: like, the next 4 years is going to be probably one of the worst 4 years in my opinion for America. I think at the end of this, they'll never elect another populist again, because of the fact that they'll realize just how much damage that those people can cause. Because I feel that Trump is going to create more problems for America than solutions. And that's just looking at how he's dealing with diplomacy. Like, there's a reason diplomacy is there and it's been there for decades. It's not because people are stupid and they're slow. It's because it's the only thing that's sort of way to satiate people. And I think Elon Musk is going to regret a lot of the things, or a lot of the decisions that he's making right now. But yeah, let them
Definitely
do
gonna
it.
regret it, seeing as he's just making money, right?
He's making money, but at what expense? Like the problem with the money he's making is, like, look at how many Elon has made the most powerful enemies within a month. He's got so many powerful enemies, like no billionaire has made as many enemies as Elon has done in 1 month. I mean, like it's one thing to have a bunch of like normal people angry at you, but he has made like how many millionaires, how many billionaires do you think had a stake in US aid?
Come again?
How many people of interest do you think had a stake in US aid?
That's a good bit.
Like, how many out of all these other things that he says he's exposing and he's how many, like, these are not weak people, and like these are not menial departments that he's dismantling people that have made millions in those departments. You understand what I'm saying? Like, in terms of, like, he's not pushing around like a bunch of users on Twitter. He's pushing around people that have actual control and a stake in the economies. And there's no surviving, dude. Like, diplomacy works because diplomacy works. You cannot forgo the bureaucracy because you've got more money. Because first of all, they decided to give you the money in the first place, and as much as they decide to give you the money, they can take it away. It's all their shit. It all belongs to the state. And he's burned so many bridges that, in his mind, I think he believes that Donald Trump is gonna be in power forever.
Do you think he might have political ambitions
Oh,
after Elon Musk, after the whole Trump thing?
what is he gonna do? He's not president. He'll never be president. He's from here.
Not that,
He's from
but you know, he can always get some other kind of position.
he will have no credibility. Like, the problem with him is that he has no regard for diplomacy. He's busy making policy on a tweet. He's trolling what he thinks on a tweet, and he's doing it in such a way that he's addressing presidents, like my own president in my country, like trolls on a tweet on Twitter. That is not a person that anyone will ever take seriously. And I think the only thing that Elon is gonna do, like, that's gonna piss, like, where Americans, like, is that Americans at some point in time, I believe in the next 5 years, are gonna want him fucking deported, and because he's gonna create so much damage in the short. Because nothing that they're doing now, Taye, if you look at it from a logical economical perspective, is good for the American economy. They are literally breaking down relationships with countries that are their allies that have no reason to break down relationships with for the sake of just being right or just being trolls. Like, why does the president of the United States need to fly over the Gulf and then declare it the Gulf of America instead of Mexico? Like, that is such a troll thing to do. Like, what adult does something like that? You understand? These are not people that you can take seriously as politicians or as... And Elon is worse because he's further discrediting Donald by doing all this crap he's doing. Of just rocking up to the White House during a freaking... You've got the president of India at the White House, and this guy just shows up with his kid. Oh, by the way, I'm just a millionaire, a random billionaire from America. I'm just gonna make talk now because... It's ridiculous. Like, I've never seen anything like it. I'm just like, what the fuck?
I mean, he's playing smart enough. Like, if I was Elon, I would also be trying to brush shoulders with you know, all these other leaders, and I would also step on the camera with my kid, you know, show him off, make Americans like me, love me, think I'm a homely kind of person. I think he's done a really smart job. He's playing really smart. The angle, though, is the part that I'm not too sure how that's going to pan out. But he might be mitigating it. So, yeah, he wants to, you know, burn shit down, obviously. But I think him burning shit down is he's relying on this kind of populist mentality. So when Trump does something like Gulf of Mexico, him and his fan base, they take that as a kind of win. It's like, hey, listen, we're doing this. We're making America great again, right? We're letting these countries and that think that are pushing us over do things. So, and even like things like with the border with Canada and Mexico, and those are wins when they show a picture up of, like, you know, migrants and being deported. That's not a win.
To Americans.
To Americans, yes, but the thing is, as long as America is an economic force, don't get me wrong, it's things have been damaged, but as long as they're the economic force, people will still have to navigate through them. It's why when, you know, Trump arrived in China, they don't like him, but they kind of, you know, put the red carpet out for him because they're like, yeah, it's
but
America.
You think that's because it's not genuine. It's just a matter of like, well, we'll show you what you want to see until we can fuck you over. And China has more power. Like my thing is that, like, again, like this whole thing is that, like, first of all, Trump is very old. He's not gonna make a second term, so JD Vance is gonna have to inherit a lot of this bullshit that Trump is creating right now. And I don't even think. In fact, I think after Trump's presidency, I think the Americans are gonna elect a Democrat, no doubt, because the damage is gonna be so much, and Like it's gonna be so much irreparable damage that he's gonna cause. That
Well, one thing Trump is really good at doing as well is that he's he's good for like a short term kind of guy. He can do
he
things
is,
that all these
yes.
W's. So when he leaves, that's when things
No,
start to
but
fall off, right?
no. But look at his first term. Things started to fall off before he left. His first term, things were falling apart before Trump even left the office. Dude, how many like this is what I say is that this is the same reason I always say to people that like the breakup between Trump and like that is gonna be the true third, like because that's gonna happen. I promise you, Ty, that's gonna happen before Trump's presidency is over. Him and Elon are gonna fall out, and it's gonna be the one of the worst fallouts in American history. The richest man in the world versus the United States president. The amount of shit slinging that's gonna happen in that contest, I can't wait for because of the amount of egos involved. Because these people cannot up, they don't know how to function diplomatically. They only know how to function via their egos, and that's not how politics work. Politics, you don't get ahead using your. He is one of the few people that has actually gotten ahead because of the fact that he's a populist.
Okay, let's move on to some gaming then. I have a few talking points. I think the biggest one, apart from the state of play, is this really kind of caught me by surprise a little bit.
Yep.
Is that PlayStation 5 has announced that they've reached 74.9 million PlayStation 5 units being sold, especially in the last quarter where 9.5 million PlayStation 5s were sold. That's an extremely impressive number, especially when you consider the fact that that's nearly 1/3 of Xbox Series X's and S. So in that aspect, Sony is absolutely killing it. And in that quarter, what's even more interesting is that around 40 to 50% of those users were completely new to the PlayStation ecosystem. So this
I
isn't
wonder
PS3,
why.
PS4. This is new users coming from God knows where.
Xbox. It's all the Xbox leaving a sinking ship.
Okay, so my thoughts on this was extremely I thought these are impressive numbers, especially after Xbox's own were abysmal. But I always thought, Sony was always in a good position. Shout out to them. But at the same time, I don't know if it's as impressive just simply because I think this is in line with the PS4 as well. So around this time, in the same PS4 time frame, they had similar numbers, which is kind of what we expected, right? Especially because they also had the COVID boost where everyone was buying games. But what really surprised me as well was, even though the revenue has increased, and even the console sales, because there was no real big AAA blockbuster game.
Nope,
It
they were
was
compared to the
third-party.
PS4 era.
Well, not even just PS4. I think even compared to like last year, like sure you had Stellar Blade, you had all these other smaller titles as well.
But
AA titles.
dude, like, bro, it was the only platform that had the biggest game of the year, which is Wukong. How do you and this is the problem I have with Microsoft's marketing. How do you disregard the biggest game and the only console you can play it on is PlayStation 5? How do you disregard that as a win for PlayStation to say, well, how many Chinese people that didn't own PlayStation 5s went out and bought PlayStation 5s? The game sold tens of millions, biggest selling game of the year. How do we disregard that and say, well, yeah, well, on console, it only sold on one console because it was only available on one console? This is something that Microsoft never addressed. But yeah, I think that's obvious to me.
I think there's a good argument there, but I think what it really just boils down to as well is that the Xbox Series X and S, there's no real value there. I think we've
Why?
always said that
Why?
Game Pass doesn't sell consoles.
Why is there no value behind the X and S?
They don't have in order
They
to
don't have.
beat PlayStation, you have to
Yeah.
come out swinging, and they didn't
What
come out
is-
swinging. But when I
what-
say come out
what- what- what-
swinging,
what- what-
I don't
what-
even mean match PlayStation's energy. You have to surpass their energy.
What do you mean come out swinging? Explain that to me.
When Xbox Series X and S came out, I think you can make an argument that, hey, listen, this is kind of come out during COVID. All the enthusiasts are going to buy it. However, the momentum stopped incredibly fast. Maybe it could have been a second
But
year.
no. That is wrong. That is false, Ty. I actually posted a tweet where there's this dude, I forgot his name, and actually I want to go quote his tweet, where he shows the 5 years or
The charts.
6 year, yeah, and look at the first 2 years, actually the first 3 years, 2020, 2021, 2022, Xbox is neck and neck with PlayStation 5. Where does Xbox fall off immediately after they buy Bethesda? They fucking do they tank. 2023 they release nothing that's exclusive to the platform. 2020, 2021, 2022 they are literally maybe 5% behind PlayStation. They are
But
like
2022 was the worst
first year.
correct?
Sorry?
2022 was one of Xbox's first year. That's the year where they didn't
No,
release any exclusives.
2020?
2022, they didn't release an exclusive, right? 2023.
No. 2023. 2022 was a good year for Xbox. It's probably the best year Xbox has had this generation.
2022 was that Forza?
It was Forza. It was what is this game? It was Flight Simulator. It was all these games. Like there were so many games that came out in 2020. 2022, I believe, is the Xbox Series X and S's best year in history. Like that's the best year that ever
was
had.
The year where Redfall got delayed.
Yeah, it's the year where Redfall
yeah,
and Starfield got delayed,
Okay,
and
gotcha.
it's the year after they had now officially got it into that whole. Well, now we own Bethesda. Now they own one of the biggest studios in the world, and they decide to do nothing with it. Then after that, they go on to buy Activision, and then they do even less. The first 3 years where they just had those studios that they bought in 2017, they were fucking doing gangbusters. They were literally at Sony's throat. That energy was unmatched in terms of like how just how like they were doing what we as fans wanted, and they just stopped, and they wonder why their business is suffering.
So, I think your analysis here is off.
Okay,
no, I
please.
think actually it's definitely off.
Please,
So
give me a
in
reason.
2023, that was the worst year, right? Yeah, we get that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But they bought
Go.
Bethesda. My argument I've always had with you is that there is nothing that they could have done that would materially change anything.
But did
The
they
only
do
thing
anything?
they could have, well, they bought Bethesda, right?
But what did they do with Bethesda after they bought it?
But they couldn't do anything with Bethesda because
Why?
the games was already time locked. It was Ghost of-
But that's
Ghost
just
of
money,
Tokyo
dude. Like you,
and
that's
Death
just
Note.
money. Like, well, what does that mean? It's just money. Like all you have to do is just buy it out and say, well, you know what? We'll give you money. We'll buy the contract.
This
out.
is
you could
true.
always do it.
This is true. But
Why
the
didn't they
second
do that?
The second question.
How
you kinda
important
have
is
to
your
ask-
platform? Yeah.
But the second question you have to ask is this: does Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo do they cause a material change in 2023 and 2?
Well, what
I
do
don't
you
believe
have
so.
in 2023? Like, well, what do you have in 2020? Whatever 2023. What do you have?
Well, nothing. Like 2023 was the worst year.
In fact, you have more games coming out in your competition on the 2020, and to the fact that like David Jaffe gave him an easy out. He said, you know what? If they do what Sony does, because Sony is very smart about, and this is my thing with Xbox, is just how gloriously incompetent they are. He says Sony with less money than Xbox will go secure a Stellar Blade from a third-party publisher. Will go secure a license from a third party to make sure that they have exclusive games for their customers. Xbox will never do that shit. And he even said the same thing. He says, 2020, dude, go get an exclusive timed license you're going to own. You want to own Activision. Go get an exclusive timed license for a Call of Duty or something. Go get something from someone that you're going to put on your platform so that they can buy your console instead of going to PlayStation. You have more money than the competition. You can buy whatever you want. Sony does it every year. And Sony has not released. There's years where Sony goes with, even this year, they're probably not going to have any first-party exclusives, but they're going to buy games that will only be on PlayStation. Xbox didn't even try.
So if you're saying that they should have went out with time exclusives, then this is where we agree. I think they should have done more. But they bought Bethesda, and listen, everyone was happy.
And
with
then,
that. Oh, this is them.
and then, what did that do for Xbox fans?
Well, nothing, because when you buy a publisher that's the games are further out, there's nothing you can do.
And on top of that, you're gonna put them on everything else anyway, Taye. What the fuck does that do for your fan base?
But you see, the point that I'm really trying to make here is that there is nothing that they really could have done, bar going to get timed exclusives, and then
Exactly.
even at that, what I would say there here is that I don't even know how you convince the bigger guys because Xbox is still self-run, right? You know, they still kind of have to manage their own
No,
finances. Yeah,
no,
they do.
that's impossible. No, no, no,
No,
no,
this is
not
true.
at
This is
all.
what Phil Spencer
No,
said.
no, that's bullshit. If that
No,
was
that's
the
not
case,
bullshit.
it's bullshit because if that was the case, Ty, then they wouldn't be yo, who's this? Satya Nadella would not be reporting directly on Xbox's front and saying, "Well, we put this much money into Xbox. This is what we're getting out." That's bullshit. There's Xbox does not self-run anything. Like Xbox has not self-run anything, dude, since Phil Spencer has been there. Since Phil Spencer has been there, they've been carrying out the vision that Satya and Phil Spencer have had. And these are lifers, these are Microsoft lifers that have a vision for Xbox. They know
When
what
I
they
say self-run is that they're accountable for their own business, right? So I think
No,
most
they're
also like
not. No, they're not.
yes they
That
are.
no,
Yes they
they're
are.
not, dude. If they were, why is it that the CEO of Xbox is busy accounting for and saying that this is how much? No, they're not. Like, explain to me how they're self accountable.
Because it was Phil said it during the FTC hearing that
No,
Xbox
but like, how are they
makes
self
money
accountable? Like, explain. Like, how?
because they run their own finances. So,
Okay, if they run their
for
own
example,
finances, how does?
from their own bucket of from their own bucket of money
Oh,
that
okay.
they have, like they would have to use that money and then allocate it. You want to invest in Game
Ah,
Pass? You want to go get a time
brilliant.
exclusive? Exactly.
Brilliant. I love that example. So out of their own pocket, they went and bought Activision Blizzard, and then before that, they went and bought
Ah, but you
Bethesda.
see, that's different, right? So
No, no, no. How is it different?
there's a
Explain to me
difference. There's a difference
how.
between a parent company giving you money as an investment tool for the future than you self-managing your own finances, right?
So whoa. Okay, explain that difference to me. So if I'm managing my own finances and I'm responsible
Yes.
just for
So
my own
yeah.
little,
Okay. Yeah. So this
yeah.
would just become like I like accountancy, right? So if Sony wants to go buy Bungie, then sorry, if PlayStation wants to buy Bungie, Sony's getting involved. However, yeah, PlayStation still has to go to Sony and says, "This is our finances. Okay, we made this revenue, we made this profit. The reason." Why
Okay.
PlayStation is becoming more live service focused is because Sony's probably looking at them saying, yeah, 4 years ago it was 16% profit. Now you're telling me it's 10%, 9%. What's going on here? So Sony is probably putting pressure on PlayStation to make more live service games to try to, increase profitability. Now, at that point, PlayStation is still accountable for their own finances. However, Sony can say, yeah, listen, to reach this goal, we still need expertise. So give us money to go buy a
Okay.
Bungie.
So explain that to me in Xbox terms. How the freaking hell how do you motivate as you are failing as a business. You've been failing for a decade.
In this
How do
case,
you
for example,
motivate a $70 billion acquisition starting with 8 billion that grows over like 2 years to 70 billion? And you're not doing all the stuff that you just mentioned that Sony had to do to motivate the bigger company. Sorry, PlayStation had to do to motivate the bigger company, Tai, to buy PlayStation. Sorry, a Bungie. Like you understand, like this is a company that is they're market leader. They dominated like a motherfucker last generation. So they have all the fucking clout in the world within that business to do that. Like they are actually the biggest part. The biggest profit maker for Sony currently is PlayStation. They're the biggest part of the Sony's business. Xbox was at the time when they bought those studios the poorest doing part. Like Windows was doing better numbers. Every other part of Microsoft was doing better numbers than this piss and fucking operation that you're running out of your backyard in Edmonton that's not contributing sorry, not in Edmonton, it's in California somewhere, but like you want to tell me that you are willing to put $8 billion and then later $70 billion on the back of their motivation as to why they needed $70 billion to keep their business afloat, and they're contributing nothing to the bigger picture. They're just a write-off when it comes to Microsoft's tax season.
No, I think you're misunderstanding a little bit. In 2024, Chris Michael stated that I don't get the luxury of not having to run a profitable run business.
I'm losing you, Ty. Your sound is
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better. That's much better.
He said in 2024, I don't get the luxury of not having to run a profitable, growing business inside of Microsoft. So your sector must be profitable. You must be doing something. However, a parent company can still invest in you, right?
No,
They can
I don't
still,
disagree. Yeah.
yeah, they can still invest in you. So when I say Xbox runs itself, the reason why we're seeing the situation right now, the reason why the games are going multi-platform is because they have deliverables to do. And they didn't match those
Okay,
deliverables.
let's go back. Let's go back to the original deliverables, which was just to sell hardware and a console. How did they do when it comes to that?
Trash.
And that's my point, Ty. Is like, so how do you give people that are doing trash for like 2 decades? Like the last time they had success in that industry was like in 2012.
Well, hold on. So this is now we're talking about now. This is very detailed now, right? So we need to go into the
Yeah.
mind of Xbox and Satya Nadella. Satya comes over and says, "I want to shut this shit down." Phil says, "No, we can do X, Y, Z." Phil says, "We can become service focused, just like you want us to be." So Satya's thinking, okay, service focus is kind of my bag, but you know what? You know gaming, you do what you want to do. So what do you need first of all? Okay, so Game Passes, we're gonna make it work, right? Okay, Xbox Series X and S, we're gonna do that as well. You're gonna buy these studios, but remember I told you the first thing he does is says, okay, you know what? Let's test this out. Here's some money. I have some faith. They go buy Minecraft, becomes the biggest game in the world.
No, no,
So
no, no. When was Minecraft bought? I think this was before Satya
2013.
was.
No. Satya signed up
Oh,
for Minecraft.
oh yeah, no, no. Okay, that's fine.
So
Yeah.
imagine you're Satya Nadella. Imagine your father, right? You've given your kid, okay, here's $1,000. Go do whatever you want to do. Like you're saying this area is good, yeah. And your kid comes back with 3,000, then it's 10,000, then it's 40,000. You're gonna have more trust.
But okay, fair enough. But like you do
Right.
understand, like, and this is what I always say to people. Okay, the moment you go that direction, Ty, it's fine. I hear what you're saying, but immediately you're building the wrong thing. And my problem with like, and then this is where I come to like, then stop lying to your consumer or your customer. Then say we want to be Microsoft games
No,
and we
but
want
hold
to
on. But
publish.
see, this is an evolving strategy, right?
No, it's not an evolving because they lied. Like
It's
for it to
evolving.
evolve, it means that people understand your vision from the beginning to
No, no,
the
but
end.
hold on. But we
They
know we
lied,
know it's
Ty. Like they
evolving.
lied.
We know it's
How?
evolving because in the email,
Yeah.
when the PlayStation announced their console, Phil was literally bragging to the higher ups to
Okay.
literally telling them that like we're gonna take down Sony. We have the better product. We have the better
Okay.
service. We have all these
Okay.
things. Like it's insane how confident he was. Yeah, that's the
Yes.
first email we saw. So
And
he's not
then
lying. You could
okay.
criticize him for failure, and this is something he actually said in the email. He says, I know the board have told me to calm down, that I'm too optimistic because these guys are the numbers
So
people. They're looking at the
okay.
numbers and saying, we don't think you're right, Phil, but you know what? You're the CEO, you're the guy who's in charge,
Okay.
you know. Do
And then
you
what
know,
happened? And then what happened to between the first 2 years of the generation before they started talking?
but then this is great then because
Okay.
we see Xbox start breaking records, right? We see them break quarter
Xbox
revenues.
starts exactly. They start doing and they start keeping up with in terms of like sales wise in America, which they used to dominate during the 360 era. And if they dominate America, they literally are very neck and neck in the world because then that means that Britain is not too far and then Europe is not too far. So those first 3 years, which is 2020, 2021, 2022, they stuck to what you saying Phil said he was going to do. Like, yeah, we're doing well. We released better hardware,
But
and
you
then
see, the
so
people,
they're doing well.
who are buying, yeah, they're doing well, right? But the reason why they're doing well is because obviously, remember, they have Minecraft, and this is on the
No,
time.
no, 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 no. Whoa, 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 whoa. Like, I'm talking about in terms of like the console business. I don't care about
Oh
Minecraft
yeah,
and all that other bullshit.
the console business
I'm
is
talking.
doing
I'm
well,
talking.
but
I don't care. Like, okay, Ty, let me just separate one thing. Like, I don't care whether Xbox makes money from or Microsoft makes money from Xbox. That's got nothing to do with me. I don't own Microsoft shares. Xbox doing well to me is how Xbox does in terms of the actual market that I'm invested in, where I buy games. Whether they're making money and that motivates them to go in that direction means nothing to me because at the end of the day, it will not contribute to either saving or keeping gaming going. So I just want to clarify to you. So my metric for success is how they're doing selling Xboxes to Xbox console owners. Everything else, like selling Minecraft and all this bullshit, I don't care about, because I know where that leads to. It leads to you trying to attract mobile gamers, which to me tells me that you don't understand console gaming in the first place. The fact that there'll always be a market, there'll always be those people that want to buy that. And if you're not interested in those people and you want to pivot to Minecraft players on cell phone, that's fine. But just understand that you're not going to get my money, and you're not going to get anyone's money who thinks like me.
But remember, we're talking about how the console started to fall apart and how the ideas changed over time. Because they're very
Okay,
confident at
go
the
ahead.
start. So the first 2 years, everything's going great. They're breaking quarterly records. The consoles are selling. However, I think what's really important here is when the Dreamcast as well first came out, it was actually doing quite well. And then it started to slow down. The Wii is another example of a console that sold reasonably well enough at the start, then it dies off because all the enthusiasts, all the fans, people who are in the hype purchase it. I have friends who purchase a Series S because of, hey, Series S, great hardware device. Some people purchase it because, hey, Xbox Series X looks good. Hey, they bought Bethesda. Let's all start buying this console. However, you will run out of those people. You need the casuals to kind of come on board. And this is where I'm looking at Microsoft's library of games, and there's nothing. There's literally nothing. And when I say nothing, I don't mean Forza isn't great. I don't mean Halo isn't great. They don't have those games that will sell consoles. And this is where everything starts to fall apart. It has nothing to do with them necessarily just wanting to change. It's because they failed in their mission that they're changing. When Bethesda was bought, the leaked emails shows Phil literally saying, we are taking every Bethesda game exclusive. And I believe, I can't remember the name of the marketing guy who left. But he was like, seriously, everything. And he was shocked. Like, okay, wow, like we're really doing this. Like, we're going full on exclusive. That email confirms Xbox in 2020 was still an exclusive company. But then something happened between that 2020 until now that changed their approach. And what happened was the gaming industry shrunk. The Xbox Series X and L didn't do the numbers, and Game Pass didn't grow as much, and
No,
the line didn't grow as much.
I disagree with you, because again, you forget the fact that the first 2 years, when first of all Xbox launched with no software, and Phil Spencer was very much aware of this, that they were launching a console with no software. They Xbox was the first console in history to launch with zero no games for the hardware, exclusive to the hardware, right? And with that, they still managed to keep up with Sony. The difference between Sony and Xbox within the first, if you aggregate it out, within the first 3 years was literally, the most was about 9%. Compared to now, where Xbox has got about Xbox is sitting at about 26, 27 million, PlayStation is sitting at 75 million. So what happened? No, so it's got nothing to do with them failing within the release of the console. All the things that Phil said that he believed in, and that they were at a stronger foot when it comes to Sony, they were all true. They were all factual. And the first 3 years of Xbox's output proves that geez, you guys were doing well, but slowly but surely you started to take your foot off the brake. And this is the time when PlayStation was sold out everywhere, because of the fact that there was so much sculpting. Even Xbox, the Series X was sold out everywhere, but they were smart enough to come up with the Series S, which could still sell to a part of the audience, and that kept them they were still doing smart things during that time. And that first 3 years, with no games, they managed to stay in the console business very well. But when they bought more studios, all of a sudden their business started to tank. Their business immediately started to tank after they bought Bethesda. All of a sudden, games are not coming out when they were supposed.
Why do you think it started to tank?
Because they changed they started to have, to look at we have such a huge library. Why are we still trying to sell hardware?
No, that's not what happened.
What happened?
When they bought Bethesda, everybody was under this impression that the industry was going to grow. In fact, that's when it was such a
Yes,
kid,
you
right?
were right.
Mhm.
Yes, because of
So
COVID, because they thought they would make
because of COVID,
because
yeah,
this is the one this is the one misconception I'll tell you that during that time when again both the PlayStation and the Xbox were neck and neck for 3 years before it started falling off like tanking as the way it is now when they've like expressed no confidence in the Series X and X despite them having more games than anyone else in the industry. So the one thing that did happen that I think that like they did not um count on like and that everyone did this or made this mistake is the fact that they thought that like they could maintain that COVID momentum like throughout, which is like to me is such
correct.
a fallacy for most companies. Like there's no ways you can maintain that. Sony couldn't maintain that success. However, Sony has still maintained momentum instead of they're selling more consoles now than they did those first 2 years. How,
Yes,
Sway? And they've got less games than they did in those first 3 years.
because they are the de facto console,
Why?
and
Who
there's
allowed
no.
them? Who gave them that position? Because that
Well,
position was not
you
earned,
gained
it
that
was given them.
position. Well, you gained that from the previous generation, right? The
No, 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 no,
PS4.
no, 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 no. The first 2 years, if that was the case, they would have beaten Xbox within the first 3 years. Within
No,
the
no,
first
no.
three
So
years, they
no,
still.
no, because I think you're forgetting that like consoles can sell really well in the first couple of years, and then they just peter off. So, for example, yeah,
No.
in the first 3 years, the Xbox 360 sold 19 million units, and the Xbox One sold 17 to 19 million units. In the first year, the Xbox One sold 10 million units, which is crazy, which is really really good. But as the years went by, it just slowed down. This is what happens because
Why? But like, but there's one important thing that you need to look at. You need to look at the release libraries. The Xbox One had one of the strongest release. The Xbox One had a far superior release library within the first like 2 years than Sony did. Guess why? Because Phil was in charge of publishing, and Phil made sure that Forza was there. They made sure that like games like what is this the zombie game from Capcom was exclusive.
that
They had they had even the Roman game. They had way more
Rise, Son
next
of Rome.
generation. Yeah, they had way more next generation games than Sony did. Sony only had Knack and Killzone at launch. Xbox had an entire slate of the first 2 years of Xbox One. Again, Xbox put everything in it, and you could tell. And
But you
the
see,
sales.
you're saying two different things. I mean, are you saying that them buying, but
Okay.
you saying that when they bought Bethesda, they decided, you know what, we have all these games, let's just go third party. I'm saying that's not what happened. I'm
No,
saying
no,
what
no, no.
happened
Wait,
is,
wait, wait, wait. With Bethesda, they first said like because where the strategy seriously changed was when they bought Activision Blizzard. With Bethesda, they were still saying this is where Phil and I've quoted him many times. He said that if you're an Xbox player and you concerned about Bethesda games, I want you to know that we plan to deliver exclusive experiences for you where Game Pass exists, which again is no longer a thing. They've changed that too now. But that is what they intended. However, when they bought Bethesda, what they did is that a lot of Bethesda's games were still years out in terms of release, in terms of like their exclusive games. Meanwhile, Bethesda had already games licensed for Sony that were releasing that same year or a year after they bought Bethesda. And 2023 is where this plays out. They have nothing for 2023. They have all the money in the world. This is even before they bought fucking whatchamacallit, Activision Blizzard. They have all the money in the world. They don't use their hand to make sure that people buy their platform. They prioritize other bullshit. They could have gone and bought 10 games that year that could have kept the Xbox on top of people's like consciousness, but they didn't. They did nothing that year for Xbox. And then they wonder why Sony destroyed them that year. And after that, they could never keep up again.
I'm trying to find an email that I think will shed some light on Xbox in 2023. Xbox games. So hopefully this will pop it up. But from what I remember, Xbox was aware that 2023 was a disaster year for them, and they said reach out to our partners and see what can be done. We need to, get games, blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff. They also had a list of games that that were
Okay,
possible.
so wait, first of all, let's answer one question. Why does Xbox still not have games when they announced games in 2017? This is 2022. Why do they still not have games that are ready by 2023?
Bad management.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to address that. Like again, this is a fault of an incompetent studio in managing its portfolio. Which again, I just think Phil was just because you can't get Phil to do everything. Phil's great at managing a publishing studio, and if that's what he was, that's what you hired him for. You would have had games every year. But now he's trusting people like Matt Booty, and then he's bringing this chick from a cell phone company to come and run his portfolio, who has her own ideas and doesn't really
You're always
get
gonna
along.
get me to agree that all this goes down to Phil. Like I agree, everything is on him.
It's on
The
him. Like this is why I
disagreement
feel
is,
that
though,
he fucked his fans over. He
but
really
you see, the agreement is that like I'm looking at him from a point of he failed. It wasn't that he was trying to go third party. He failed. Like his comments are very clear. I want us to compete. I want Bethesda games to be
then why
exclusive
doesn't
to
he say
Xbox.
that? Why doesn't he say that instead of saying, "Well, we did this," and why doesn't he say, "You know what? I thought this is what was gonna happen."
No, because that's not because you can read in between the lines when he says, "Hey,
Why
listen."
do we need to know?
When he
That's like
says
that's horrible. Why do you want your
There is
audience
no
to read between
who's
your
going to
lines?
say I failed. Okay, he was very clear when he
He
says,
did. He did. He was the
"Oh,
first guy. No, but he did. Like Phil has gone on to take slack for his shitty team. How many times? When Redfall failed, he went out on a limb and says, "I failed. I'm responsible for the failure of this piece of shit game." You telling me he cannot just say, "You know what? We had a shitty plan, and then I'm the one that takes." Bro, like he already
To-
did that for his
he can,
people.
what he can say is he can say this game didn't do no, this game didn't do well. This game didn't meet expectations. This game didn't do all
No.
right."
He said
But
that
to
it was
say
his fault. He said it was
but
his
to
fault.
say that hey, the consoles that we want to sell, it's doing bad because I, as the CEO, have failed in this mission. Satya Nadella will be on the phone and say, "You need to get over yourself and cop on. You can't be saying these kind of weird statements because you're telling me you want me to invest money in a next gen Xbox console, but you're telling people that you're a failure." Well, they are. Like, already know it's confirmed that they're making a next gen console, right?
By who?
I mean, Sarah Bond says she's making one. Everybody has
Well,
said
Sarah
it.
Bond said that they were gonna announce it in June last year. I
No,
didn't
but
see
okay.
any
I mean, come
confirmation.
on. Like, I mean,
She
you don't
said that.
you
She
think
said that.
he said it himself as well. They've
Yeah.
all said like, yeah, we're making an action.
Which they're liars, and I've been saying this. Like they're liars. They've
You
said so
really
many things that
think
they've lied
like
about.
next year comes and they're like, oh, actually, we're actually not making a console.
I think they're not. Like I don't think Xbox is making a console. I think
Why?
Xbox is gonna come up. Like why would they? Look at the numbers are atrocious. Sony, everyone that's owned an Xbox is going to buy a PlayStation. They can see it.
It's already green
Like
lit though.
it's never gonna make like okay. Oh, but let's see. Like, I can't confirm or deny what Xbox is planning to do, but I'm telling you that good luck if you expect to see a new console from Xbox. That's an actual Xbox console. Good luck. They're in no position to do so. This is why. Okay, let me put it like this, right? If Halo and Gears comes out on PlayStation this year, there is no Xbox console coming. I can guarantee you that. Forget an Xbox next generation console coming in the way that we know an Xbox console.
Sorry, if
They
Halo
might
and
announce
Gears
that
comes out
we're gonna
this
do
year,
an app,
we're gonna see none.
huh?
Sorry, if Halo and Gears comes out, what's gonna happen?
You're not gonna get an Xbox console coming out, a next generation Xbox console.
I mean,
I guarantee you. There's no need for it. Like why? Like, dude, like you literally like why would they spend that amount of research and like R&D to keep up with Sony, who's trying to make a console that's gonna sell to hundreds of millions when they know that they're not even gonna sell 10 million? Without exclusives, you're never gonna sell over 10 million consoles. Period.
this is true. Well, okay, so why do you think they're making a console then? Still man their position.
I don't think they're making a console. Like that's what I'm saying to you. Is that I think Microsoft has lied so many times. They're just gonna pivot and say, "Well, we're doing some sort of like we're licensing the Xbox app to be used primarily on Asus's mobile consoles."
Well, I mean,
That's
obviously-
but that's what you're gonna get. You're not gonna get an Xbox made console. I promise you. You're not. There's no way they're looking at these sales now and they're like, Jesus fuck. What are we sitting at like 25 million? Sony's sitting at 75 million. This is
So
worse than any console
the
that we've ever made.
so the main thing here would be, I don't think this is it. I think if Microsoft had their way, there wouldn't really
Yeah.
be a next gen console. But at the same time, there is something still there. So you still have
No, and again,
30
Ty,
something million users who
yeah,
are going to who want to play your games. You also have Game Pass players there. If you were to abandon the Xbox console without a transition or an alternative for these people, you will 100% lose everybody, and you lose that
exactly.
30% revenue. So
And then,
they
yeah,
know they're with you here. They know that they're gonna leave the console space, but you have to transition it properly.
but my question is this, Ty. Like, if you're putting all your games before you release your new console, if all your fucking main games, if Halo comes out on PS5, if Gears comes out on PS5, you've already put Forza there. You put all your main games, all the games that we associate with Xbox on PlayStation 5. I promise, I guarantee you, no one is buying your Xbox next generation. Nothing. Like there's no ways, no one has ever done that. Like that's the dumbest console strategy because that's not how consoles have ever worked. Like that is if you think that you can put all your games on the competing platform and expect to sell any level of consoles to your existing market, like the people that you said, well, we're selling you hardware because you're gonna get these experiences. You're never gonna get that. Like, and they know this, and Phil knows this. Like right now, the last thing that he said when he was being interviewed, when they asked him, so why would people buy an Xbox console? And he says, we want people to buy a console because of the experiences you can get on that console. And I'm like, okay, cool. So how many people bought Xboxes because it has what's that feature?
Quick resume.
Quick resume, and the fact that well, what else? What was another Xbox only feature? There was a couple. It had VRR first. How many people do you think bought that and stayed on that platform for that reason? Like it's so silly to say like, dude, the cons like, and again, like there's a guy that said this. It says like, no, because Phil is saying Microsoft has no ground. Like my thing is with Microsoft, Ty, and this is my main counter to you, is that none of their business strategies have ever worked in gaming. And like for you to come and tell me that, well, they're selling Game Pass and it's gonna work, I'm like, first of all, when last did they give you Game Pass numbers to tell you that Game Pass is doing well? I think they are pivoting from Game Pass to being a publisher because Game Pass failed. Like they might still be pushing Game Pass because, well, it's like, well, you know what? It's the only thing that's sort of selling their current console. But beyond, like, what would be the reason for anyone to buy a Xbox console next generation? Aside from game, the only thing is Game Pass is like, well, you're selling people Game Pass, but my problem is right now with Call of Duty being exclusive to Game Pass, you couldn't sell over 3 million units. Sony sold the most units that they've ever sold in any single holiday. It's like, so what are we doing here? Like, how are we measuring our success? Player numbers? Is that what we're doing? Which are all on PC and not on your app? They're all on Steam. What are we doing?
A lot of this is a transition. So everything you're saying, such as like, yeah, I'm not into this. I know what you're saying, but you still just can't rip off the band-aid that easily. It's better to transition people. Now, if Xbox didn't greenlight and Sarah Bond wasn't making their next gen console, maybe, just maybe, Satchel would have said, yo, pause this for a second. But remember, they want to be a one platform ecosystem like Steam. And what Steam is doing, right? Remember, this is Microsoft. Steam is its own entity, but Microsoft is bigger. They're looking at what Steam is doing, or at least they both have this envision of Steam. And Steam is Steam has made a handheld. Cool. Steam is a
Okay.
platform, right, where you can download the app and put it into different applications, ROG Ally. What Xbox wants to do is essentially what Steam is doing.
Okay.
The only
Okay.
difference between Steam and Xbox right now is that Steam doesn't have a home console. But the rumor is Steam is making a home console because essentially the Steam Deck is a home console, it's just in handheld form. So when Steam
Okay.
finally makes that home console, but remember what Steam is also doing as well. They've reached out to Lenovo and the other manufacturers and they're saying, hey, take our OS stick it on your platform. That's what
Can I ask?
Lenovo has that system. So
Yeah.
if you look at it from that point of view, that's what Xbox wants to do.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? How many consoles? Like Steam Deck has been around for almost 4 years. How many consoles has Steam Deck sold?
Apparently, like rumor says it's 10 million. I think it's less than
No,
that.
it's like 6 million. So the Xbox 360, sorry, the Xbox Series X and S are more successful than that. So you saying to me that Microsoft is looking at consoles and saying, well, you know what, our best selling console has sold 80 million, but we think that's a shitty business strategy to try and do business that way. We want to do business the way Steam has in the console business, and we want to sell 6 million units, which is less than any of our consoles have ever done.
Yeah, but hold on, because you can look at Xbox and say, and you could blame them for. I mean, you can say they're doing this as well, yeah. But so is PlayStation.
Okay, how is PlayStation doing this?
PlayStation they're making a handheld, right?
Yeah, but like PlayStation making a handheld is like Nintendo making a handheld. It's still gonna have exclusives.
No,
It's not gonna abandon.
Sony has said, "Listen, we're on we're right now in line with the console sales of the PS4, and we predict we're gonna do much better." But even that's not enough for Sony. They're saying
No, but like,
okay, let's make a
wait.
handheld and let's do a PC clients. Let's get into mobile. Let's get into streaming. So
yes, but where? Okay, where are they doing that and giving away the exclusives to their competitors with nothing in return?
The key thing here is yes.
And Ty, I'm sorry, this is just gonna come down to your ideology, which is the same ideology the likes of who's this Paris and all these other people have, of like this kumbaya world where everyone does business the way Microsoft wants to do business. And the fact is the Japanese are not doing that business. So look at the Japanese business model and tell me where it's changing. Aside from the fact that they're putting their games or some of their games on PC, which to me is a non-entity. I didn't care, or I wasn't hurt, or I wasn't complaining about the fact that Xbox put their games on PC. My problem with Xbox putting their games on PC is that, first of all, when they did it very poorly, because when they put their games on PC, it was on a shitty app. Like, their games still were better on Steam than they were on their own app. So it all came down to how poorly. If they put their games on PC and the app that was as good as the actual Xbox console on PC, I promise you would have more users of Game Pass today, but they never did that. So, like, when you make this example or you make this comparison to Sony, explain to me what the connections are where Sony's doing the same thing. And this is where they're going to be in the next 10 years. They're going to be following Microsoft.
I don't even know if you disagree with that Sony is moving towards the same path as Microsoft, except the exclusive part. Are we on the same page?
Well, isn't the exclusive part the most important way to and for me it's important, Ty, because that's why I buy consoles. Otherwise, there's no point in buying a console. Like, I can't sort of like argue with you beyond that and say, because then we're talking about like we were doing different business case studies. I can only make a case study from what I understand about the gaming business and consoles. But I'll say this. I'll say like Sony has always done like for instance, Sony brought in achievements. Like, right? Microsoft was the first one to come up with achievements and they were great. However, Sony came up with what do they call it? Trophies. And in a long enough timeline, trophies ended up being more popular than achievements, to the point that people started to say, well, Microsoft needs, or Xbox needs to have trophies. They need to have a similar structure to trophies because trophies work better. So everything that Microsoft has introduced, Sony has implemented far better, or Nintendo has implemented far better. Microsoft has been horrible at execution because they have no patience. Everything needs to sort of like make money within the next 3 years, the next 5 years. Like, there's never any patience to give things a chance to work. And that's all I'm saying, is that like, what have they put in plan that Sony took that they did better in the long run? Like, what has Microsoft brought into gaming that is still better, aside from Game Pass?
Online services?
Online services, give me an example. Are you talking about what, like Xbox Live?
Xbox Live.
Well, I don't even know what the last numbers were because there's like been very poor
Well,
reporting.
I don't mean execution. I mean quality wise, right? I remember during the PS3 and Xbox
Well,
360
let me
era.
put it like this: like Sony, as of like 2 weeks ago, continues to still have a shitty network. Like, the fact that they were down for that long and it's happened to them several times, they continue to have very, very shitty servers and all that shit there. However, they still keep up with Microsoft to the point that like they still have a lot of users on PSN. But during the 360 era and the early Xbox One era, they were kicking Sony's ass in that area. And it's another area where they just let the fucking they just took the foot off the gas and they started offering shitty Xbox Gold benefits.
If I was to even say subscription services and cloud, your response would be like, "Well, they're not Game Pass isn't doing the crazy numbers." But I
Well,
mean,
Game Pass is not number one. It's better than Sony. Yes,
yeah,
they're
it's
doing
better.
far better.
You could
Yes,
also say cloud services. They're
but my
better.
problem is this. Like, you know what my biggest problem with Game Pass is? Where is Game Pass selling the most? Is it on PC?
The growth is PC, but the most players on console.
Okay, so console that you're killing is where you have your most players.
Okay, hold on. You, Here's the thing: you keep talking about them killing the console, and there might be some argument there that all their moves that they're making, yes, you're right, it is harming the console. However, the reason why they're moving away from console isn't because they want to kill it. The reason why this is happening is because they suck. They've already lost the console spot.
No, but they didn't suck the first 3 years. That's what I'm saying to you, Ty. Is
No,
that
no, no.
the first 3 years they
in
kept
the
up.
same way I pointed to how the Dreamcast sold well the first couple of years, and how even the Wii U sold well in the first year.
no,
Yes,
no,
yes.
not the Dreamcast. If we go back to the Dreamcast tanked immediately when the PS2 was released. The Xbox was released exactly the same time. So the
But
series.
you have to remember this: the PS4, the Dreamcast is coming off a Sega Saturn that sold 10 million copies. The PS5 is coming off a PS4 that sold 140 million copies. The Xbox Series X and S is coming off an Xbox One that sold 60 million copies. You're going to have an install base of people who actually want those consoles. And then remember, the COVID happened, which means everybody was going to go look for games and consoles. But as soon as things died down, and as soon as it became clear, like, okay, fine, everyone just go back to normality. What are these two consoles offering? And it became clear after 2022, when 2023 hits, it became very crystal clear that Xbox had nothing. And in the emails, Phil is even saying, "This is a freaking disaster. We don't have anything to show."
Well,
And
but
PlayStation,
whose fault
they
is that?
did.
That's their poor planning.
It is their fault,
Bro,
right?
like no, but it's very
Yeah.
clear. Like, dude, first of all, you are the leader of the fucking company, right? You launched your console with no games. You surprised that 3 years in, after a few public or a few the of the companies that you bought or that you had under your umbrella were able to release games within 2021 and 2022. You surprised that 3 years in you still don't have games. Bro, like whose fault is like that is you created you launched a console with no games. How do you like and this is my problem with Microsoft is the fact that like bro, Sony's doing this. They're saying it's fair game. Go buy like it's nothing to you. You can afford $70 billion. You telling me you can't go buy a bunch like you did when you launched the Xbox One? You can't buy like Crytek like you did Crytek and Capcom back then and say, you know what, we want these games to be exclusive on our platform. Something that Sony does every single year to ensure that they have more exclusives, and it's not from first party, and it works every single year, and they sell units. You can't do that. Why, Ty? Like, explain to me the logic behind why they don't.
You mean after ABK or before ABK?
This is all before ABK because 2023 is just after they bought ABK. So I'm not expecting ABK to put all their games there. They've got deals with Sony. But you have the money to say, okay, cool. You know what? For 2023, we're going to license all these games to be exclusive to our platform. Sony's doing this shit. Fuck them. We can do it as well. Why?
The 2023 one from I couldn't find those exact emails, but it was the acknowledgement of Phil Spencer when he found out that Redfall and Starfield were going to be delayed from 2023 to 2024. And he said, this is a disaster for us. That's him acknowledging.
No, that's him. Well, I can
right?
also acknowledge my incompetence, Ty. But like that's him acknowledging I've been incompetent. I
No,
didn't
no, no.
understand.
Hold on. There's no disagreement that everything is incompetence. The what I'm saying here is their response to that.
Yeah.
Their response to that is what they're doing right now. There is no
Which does what for me? Like I've been already
no,
disappointed.
no, no.
Like,
I
you
know
fucked me
why.
already.
I know why you're saying screw all this kind of stuff. Yeah,
You fucked me already. Like I was waiting for those games.
Specific financial point of view, which is, I always ask myself the same question. Yeah, at what point does a company say, okay, let's call it quits? I know when Sega did it. I know, like I watched the interview where Peter Moore said he flew to Japan and he had to tell the Japanese guys like we're calling it quits. And he said, like, all these seniors, they got up and they left in shame because they couldn't believe that they were giving up to Sony. However, he's saying if we listen to them and kept going, Sega would have just gone out of business or whatever it is. Like this had to happen, and everybody would agree, like, yeah, that was the best decision for the company. Fuck your feelings. In the same way, how if Nintendo came to me on the board and said, yo, GameCube, cool console. I know you want a GameCube too. You want us to compete with PlayStation and Xbox, but the truth is we can't compete because those GameCube numbers are abysmal enough for us to say we definitely need to switch it up. So we're making the Wii. I would have walked out to and said, what the fuck is this shit? And I know that because as soon as the Wii was announced and I saw it, I was disgusted. Like, this is it? For freaking the same GameCube with a freaking motion control? What a joke. So I'm looking at Xbox and saying, when is that time for them? Listen, they bought ABK, and I saw their revenues for that just came by. It was atrocious, bro. I'm like, this is, if you even have ABK, the only reason why they really looked good in the last couple of years was because of ABK.
But dude, it's because they've been making, bro. But Taye, they've been making bullshit decisions since the Xbox 360 era ended. They've been trying to supplement the Xbox for something else. They first tried to turn it into a TV, then they tried to turn it into a subscription service, then they tried to turn it into a publishing service, which is basically what they're doing now. My point is, when have they ever tried since the Xbox era to sell consoles? They haven't. That's my point, is that if you had stuck to the basics with your money as Xbox, you would have won eventually. It was just a matter of time when you won. And they understood this because there was a mail from, I think it was the guy that is Matt Booty. I think it was Matt Booty saying, you know what, let's just spend them out of business. They could have always done that. That was always an option. They chose not to do it. My fucking gripe with Xbox is the fact that every single point in time they've had an opportunity to stomp a Sony down. They've chosen not to. And a lot of that had to do with Phil Spencer's decision making. It has nothing to do.
Agreed.
He was in a position where he could have said to his bosses, I'm going to destroy Sony. We're going to buy Bethesda and we're going to make everything exclusive.
But he did.
Then what? Then what would have... Sony would have been able to do nothing. And do you think all those PC gamers that want a second option to play their games on a TV would have fucking gone to PlayStation when they know that... the classic, the definitive RPG experiences from Bethesda are going to fucking Xbox. And then they bought Bethesda. Sorry, they bought Activision. In which case, you know what? Put whatchamacallit, what's this? Call of Duty and all the popular games that are on PlayStation. Keep them on PlayStation. Make that money. That's fine. But you think they were not able to say, well, okay, we have all these other IPs that we're inheriting from these guys, including World of Warcraft. We're going to put World of Warcraft on Xbox. It's not on any console right now. We'll put it to Xbox, and Xbox will be the only place you can play World of Warcraft on console. There's so many opportunities that Phil Spencer has had to destroy PlayStation.
There's opportunities, easily. But
he's done nothing.
But there's incompetence, finance, and time that hinders that. All those three factors.
Okay, so financially, what is their inaction gained them versus Sony? because if they had
No,
gained
no, no. When
all those,
when I say hinder, right, I'm talking about like things just can't happen, like just like that with the click of a finger, right? So when you talk about World of Warcraft, yeah, I'm sure like they were like, oh yeah, World of Warcraft would be great to be on console now, but probably they don't have the finance for it. In fact,
what do you mean?
It was Jez who said
What do
that.
you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
They
What
don't
do I
have the
mean?
finance for it.
Okay.
Like they just no, dude. Like explain to me, like, dude, if you can spend like Taye, they didn't
Okay.
need like Taye. Can I put a just a thesis to you? It would have taken Xbox if Xbox wanted to stomp Sony to the ground and win definitively in the console space and become the dominator. It would have taken them maybe 20 billion US dollars. That's all. I promise you, they didn't need more than 20 billion US dollars to do that. Any competent company could have crushed Sony if you look at how much like the game budgets are and everything. With $20 billion in about how long does a console generation last? About 7 years. They would have crushed Sony with just $20 billion. They chose to go for a 70 to almost 80 billion, if you consider all the other costs, $1 billion transaction to lose. Explain that shit to me. To go support the competition that has stomped you to the ground. You were complaining about your competition at the trials, saying that they're trying to keep you under. Now you have all the money in the world to put them out of business, and all you would opt to do is to put your games on their platform. It would have cost you less than 20 billion to put them out of business, or to relegate them to second place permanently. Explain that logic to me. That you needed $70 billion to lose.
I'm guessing you're talking 20 billion over the console generation.
Yes, 20 billion over the console generation.
So
Sony has never
aspect,
even spent that much to win any generation.
For that aspect, it would have been, get Final Fantasy 16 as a time exclusive, get Final Fantasy Rebirth time exclusive.
Easy. All those are nothing. Like, what is that? Like, what, 200 million? Like, come on, like, that's nothing.
So all this, you know what? Like, I mean, there's no disagreement there that if they had 20 billion just to outspend, then that could happen.
If you gave, I put it like this. I put it to you. If I brought back, if you asked me what, like, I always, like, for the longest time I believed in Phil Spencer, but it struck me like very late, and this is like after this shit happened. Like, oh shit, the one thing I didn't consider about this all is that these are fucking Microsoft guys. At no point in time did they ever care about Xbox or saving Xbox or keeping. All they did is like, how do we create value for Microsoft shareholders? And that's what I didn't understand. Like, all along, I was like, fuck. Phil has never been an Xbox guy. Phil has always been a Microsoft guy. He's like, all of them are Microsoft guys. Like, Microsoft comes first. It's like that's where they pray. Everything else is secondary. And if you asked me to run Xbox's business from, let's say, after the Xbox One, I would have bought back someone, or I would have gotten you someone like Peter Moore, who cares about gaming and who understands video gaming and who understands that consoles are gonna be here for years. This bullshit of like consoles are going away is a Microsoft vision, and Microsoft has no stake in what they're talking about. These are people that are selling no consoles and they're telling you consoles are going away. That is in any industry, the worst people to listen to are the ones that are losing at the industry, because they're trying to pivot away from the industry. So my thing is to bring back somebody, first of all, that understands console gaming, and I would have given that person 20 billion and say, good luck. Do what you want to do. Like, with that 20 billion, you've got these amount of years to beat Sony. And I promise you, with 20 billion, they would have buried Sony. And Microsoft can't do that with 70. They can't sell their own consoles. They can't sell their own hardware with 70 billion behind them. They did worse than when they had no money. Like, to me, that's baffling. Like, you sold less hardware than you did when you had a fraction of the money. Jeez. The monumental failure.
So 20 billion is an interesting number. And I think the reason why that number is difficult is And I think this is why it's going to be hard because, one, well, actually, it could be easy. It just depends how Phil phrases it. Like the reason why it can work is because obviously Phil was able to convince Satchel like, hey, listen, it's Game Pass, it's PC, it's cloud, and it's console. These are the avenues that we're gonna make this money. And they probably put up some projections, and everyone signed off on it. To give 20 billion just for timed exclusives to wipe out PlayStation, to take a market share of PlayStation. I don't know if 20 billion might be enough. I mean, it could be, but like for example, PlayStation just in like 2024, they made 30 billion in revenue. Now, obviously, that's not profit, that's revenue. But if they can make 30 billion a year in revenue, you can guarantee that if they think Xbox is spending 20 billion, that they will go hard as well to ensure that they have the market share.
But again, they would never be able to spend 20 billion on games in 5 years or 7 years for that matter. Like they don't have the money, dude. Like they just don't have that money. Like look at how much they're spending. Like don't look at their revenue. Revenue is very disproportionate from how much you spend to get that revenue. It's always exponentially more. So like for them to make that money, they're spending maybe 3 billion, a billion, a billion five, but they're never spending like 20 billion should last you an entire generation. Like more than a generation.
Actually,
20 billion is
worse than that actually.
It's way like 20
because
billion
the
should
profit
last you
margins are
years.
not the same. I think the profit margins are like in the 10%, 13%, 15%. PlayStation's margins 15%. Like
Exactly,
15,
and they don't even have that. Like in terms of margins, PlayStation's problems is margins. It's not making money. Everybody buys their product. The problem is that they're very poor at managing how they reproduce the actual product. And they've created a situation, and they've created that situation. No one else. They can solve that situation by diversifying their studios again. Because again, gaming has proven to them. If you want, for instance, a multi-billion-dollar free-to-play game, you spend $1 million. You don't spend 50 or $200 million. You spend $1 million to $5 million because it's the smaller games that end up becoming these viral multiplayer experiences. It's not big budget games, which for some reason Sony missed the memo on that, which to me I think cost them that money that they ended up spending on all this bullshit live experiences, which they never needed to. And they also need to reel back how much they're spending on their those games. Those games don't need to be that expensive, but because of the fact that they're hiring so many companies that are hitched with all these other standards like DEI and all this bullshit, that you don't really need to hitch that shit to your company. You can literally, excuse me, just like before, like how people used to make games, you can limit that shit. But they choose to have all those overheads. You don't need all those overheads in your company. And you, on top of that, you don't need to have motion capture and all that bullshit for your game, for every game. You can have one big game and say, okay, we're going to put all our motion capture efforts into God of War. But we don't need all our games to have motion capture and all that shit. They just need to be fun. No gamer's going to care. But like, again, it's the studios investing in the wrong things because they're not focused on their primary consumer, who's the person that bought these games before they were big, before they were popular. They're now trying to use these games to get the fucking people that play mobile games, which is the dumbest thing, in my opinion, that you could ever do. You want to go after mobile games, go make mobile games on cell phones and try and sell that shit. Don't try and sell it on console. Console is a different market.
Man, I'm still a bit whatever the hell I have, Sha. I take your point. I think the 20 billion is an interesting number.
10 billion. 10 billion, Ty. Put it down to give a studio head, give Peter Moore 10 billion to beat Sony. I bet you he'll do it.
Yeah, I think yeah, I don't know. The 20 billion one, I need to think about that a little bit more. Like my mind is just not really active today.
10 billion would include all the games that you bought or all the expertise you got from Bethesda, which was a whole lot of nothing as well. because you got duds like fucking Redfall that cost you money. Like you got so many fucking, you got a game that you had to market the shit out of, but at the same time it didn't give you the return that you wanted, which was Starfield. Like there's so many like decisions, like even that 8 billion, like all those decisions is the same reason why they're gonna put all this shit on PlayStation, is because they didn't get the return that they initially expected. That's why I say with 10 billion, I believe a good console studio head like Peter Moore. Look at what Peter Moore did with the Xbox for nothing. He did that shit for maybe $1 billion, less than $1 billion, where he managed to get you all these timed exclusives, including the likes of like Mass Effect, like Bioshock. He got you Elder Scrolls for nothing, and that put the Xbox 360 so far ahead. No one has ever tried that. Phil Spencer tried to launch you a console with no games. No games, and he was okay with that. And then he went on to say, well, if we can't do Halo, we can't do Xbox. And then he failed to launch Halo successfully a year later, after the game was supposed to come out.
You know what? So the reason why I don't even think 20 billion is going to be enough is, number one, Sony's going to push back. But I think the important thing, like this numbers I'm seeing here says that, you know, for that year, Sony made 30 billion, right? So if you want to look at
how much did they spend? Please find me how much they spent that year to make 30 billion.
No. But remember, the same thing. Like, yeah, they spent a lot of money to make the 30 billion. But remember, Xbox is
But
also
give me a
spending.
number. Give me a number of how much they spent. So
Well, I
that
know
we can
the
get close to that.
revenue. Well, the profit margins are like around 10%. So if you do the math, you can kind
No. Don't forget, profit margins don't just include overheads. They include other things. Like profit margins also mean like when they say, well, like, how much profit did we make? How much can we pay to shareholders? Right? So like it includes a whole bunch of other things over and above that.
Well, it just means
The
how much.
initial
It
investment.
just means how much that they've made from a profit point of view.
Yeah, it means like, well, again, like we paid, well, we made
Well,
these
well,
games.
well, hold on. So here's really my point. Yeah, if you say give Xbox 20 billion to take out Sony,
Yeah.
I'm saying that Sony can say, okay, you want to take 20 billion for the whole generation to wipe us out. We make 30 billion a year. Now you could say,
But they don't
that's-
spend. They spend.
Yeah.
Can I give you an estimate of how much I think they spend to get that 30 billion back? They spend probably, like, if I think of like in terms of like gaming budgets and like because of the fact that they're not, all the games that they're making are gonna come out later, so we're gonna count those for the years that they come out. That's when we're gonna account those budgets. To gain exclusives or timed exclusives, and I look at everything that they do, maybe let's say they spend $1 billion a year, which is a lot of money. That's $1 billion a year to make sure that they have exclusive content for PlayStation, without including their own actual output.
wait, so are you just talking about money for time exclusives?
Yeah, just the money for content a year that is.
Yeah,
on
but I'm
their
saying that
platform.
like PlayStation can still pull money from the PlayStation bank fund.
Huh?
They can still go to a bank and say we make 30 billion a year.
Yeah, Microsoft can go and say we make 300 billion. They can make 10 times that.
Yeah,
That's
but,
what I'm
but then
saying.
but then that means the 20 billion that Xbox can pull from, it has to be like 50 billion.
Well, this is my thing, right?
It's
If
just gonna
Sony,
increase
like,
them.
this is my, okay, like, let me put it simply then. So let me take, because you're fixating on the number now. So if you're saying Sony can get a similar 20 billion, then Microsoft can spend a similar 50 billion. But the bottom line is that you're trying to win market share. You're trying to make sure that at the end of the day, people refer the same way that people always go to Windows, people always go to Xbox. So like all you have to, and again, dude, it's not going to be a significant, my point with the 20 billion was that you don't have to significantly outspend Sony for you to, like, Sony has a fraction of the money that you will ever have. You spent 70 billion on just one studio. Like 20 billion to win a gaming console generation is nothing. And of course, that 20 billion includes things like, well, you know what, for this year, we're going to extend loans for 7 billion, right? But at the end of the day, it's all from that 20 billion. Like you can always do shit like that. All I'm saying to you is that whatever Sony can do, Microsoft can do 10 times more, but they never did. They always played it like, you know what, like I don't know actually, to be honest with you, what their strategy was, because if you're planning to spend 70 billion, which is more than anyone has ever spent in gaming, I don't know why you fucking decided to lose so much. Like, I would spend 70 billion after I knew that, like, what? I dominate this industry. Now I can spend 70 billion to buy everything because no one can tell me shit. Now you still had to fucking spend a year in trial to listen to Sony because of the fact that they were whining because they had a superior position to you because you failed to take them out of the position. Man. Like, all Xbox's problems are self-created. And again, they've created no value for their customers. They're pivoting. My problem with Xbox is one thing. Whenever they have a winning position, they pivot. They did that with the 360, and from the 360, they've been doing that. Whenever they have something that's a winning thing, they pivot to something else, and then that thing fails, and then they wonder why it failed, because they never stuck with anything that they actually believed in. There's not a single thing that Xbox has actually believed in. Even Game Pass. Because everybody says, well, Game Pass, if they still believed in Game Pass, they'd be telling you how much Game Pass memberships they're growing every month. They don't believe in Game. The moment they stopped announcing Game Pass numbers, it tells you Microsoft no longer believes that that's a sector that they can grow in, or that they can get more revenue out of reasonably.
I think a lot of things you say are like they're tainted with Xbox sucks in a way.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair assessment. Yes, because that's true. Because, dude, they suck. Like, prove it that they don't suck. Prove to me that Xbox doesn't suck.
They do suck. But I think the analysis then is it means that you miss some points.
But okay, Ty, that's a fair point. But my thing is this: how do you analyze a business that's failed? Like, do you not consider the fact that, like, all their failures have contributed to how they got to this point? So when you look at any plan that they're setting for their future, are you going to say, well, these guys have sucked for so long, but I think this time they're gonna do better? What are you basing that assumption on? Like Sony right now, like, everybody can say, well, Sony's doing bad, but I can tell you that, well, based on what I know about Sony and how they've done their track record, they've always managed to come back. All it's gonna take is these three variables, and this will push them enough so that they're able to get themselves in a position again where they are dominating the market. Same thing I could say for Nintendo. It's like, well, Nintendo, yes, they did but they learned and they were able to pivot, and then you could immediately see once they pivoted the results. Microsoft has no such results. They pivoted 3 times and you still can't see their results in terms of, like, where are they winning? Where are they good? Where in gaming have they excelled? And the only place I'll give it to them is publishing, and which is what they're seeing as well. It's like, well, geez, fuck, as a publisher, we make a shit ton of money. Where else have they ever done anything except and publishing is the only thing that they've been. And again, it's got nothing to do with them, just the IPs that they manage. They've not, in my opinion, and just factually, they've not created that success. But that success can create, perpetual value for them. But excuse me, where else have they succeeded, Ty, where you can point to and say, well, look at this, they succeeded in this part of gaming, and they continuously, and they still continue to dominate? Where?
I mean, they're doing good.
Where, like relatively where, dude? Like,
I mean,
what part of
revenue
gaming?
wise, they're doing good. Maybe
No, but relatively to their competitors, where are they doing well? Who are they doing well against?
Well, I mean, from the revenue perspective, is it like what?
But what are you looking at revenue? Like, are they selling more games than who? Well, what are they doing? Are they selling more? What are they selling, or what service, or what? Aside, like, the only thing that they can say is Game Pass. They can say, well, Game Pass, and again, they still not giving us numbers. And again, like, Game Pass, I always say, is not even the most successful subscription service, because
I think let me get the numbers again.
Yeah, I mean, like, you look at Apple, whatchamacallit, that's like everyone that owns an iPhone or an iPad has Apple Arcade, which makes it the most successful. Whatchamacallit, even though they don't report on those numbers, it makes it the most successful subscription service. What service does Xbox offer in gaming where they are number one?
Nah, they're not gonna offer anything with a number one. And they probably make more
Why?
money from their subscription services than PlayStation.
Why?
and
They've
Nintendo.
been in this for 20 years. Why are they not good at anything in gaming?
Because they're not that good. They kind of suck. But
Thank
it's not
you.
just about
That's
suck.
the bottom line. It just
But-
comes down to that they,
but even
they
at
are
that-
shit at gaming.
But even not
so
that,
so my
they're
question
at
to you, Ty.
22 billion, right?
No, I don't care about like I'm not a shareholder, Ty.
At
Ty, are you a
PlayStation,
shareholder?
Yeah, at 30 billion. So
Okay, fair
they
enough.
got the
But my
Ws.
thing is this, Ty, is like, are you a shareholder? Does that 22 billion matter to you? Or are you a console owner or a person that buys PlayStation or Xbox games?
I purchase consoles, bro.
Okay, cool. So my question to you is that if you look at that, and you look at Sony and you look at Microsoft, like what value have they created for their players as outside like Game Pass? Everyone say, well, Game Pass is the greatest. My problem with Game Pass is that Game Pass is the same thing as like it's the same. You're gonna have the same issues that you have with if it grows, which I don't think it will outside console. You're gonna have the same issues that you have with Netflix eventually, where they're just gonna lock you down in a position where they're saying, "Well, you depend on us on games," which is what Xbox wants, because they've proven this several times in the past. You're gonna be dependent on us on games, so you're gonna have to sort of listen to us how much we want to charge you for the service, and this is why I say like renting games, which is what Game Pass essentially is that you don't own anything, you're still renting from our service. None of these games are actually yours, which is the difference with Steam. Steam, it's your library. You'll always have those games in your library until Steam doesn't exist, I suppose. So, like, what value does Xbox bring to gamers, really?
Well, that value is gonna be third party games.
But, like, they're available on everybody's platform.
Yeah, they will become a third party publisher. They'll just do what Steam is doing.
And then that's what,
That's
and
it.
then and I tell you this, Steam is planning to enter the console business, and guess what? The first thing Steam is gonna do when they enter the console business, Ty?
Steam is gonna be a threat, not just to Xbox though, but I think to Sony as well.
But
to some
guess
extent.
what? The first thing that they're gonna do?
Who, Steam?
Hmm?
Who?
Steam.
Steam.
Yeah, Steam. Yeah.
What are they gonna
Gabe
do?
Newell. They're going to license exclusives because they understand that's the only way you can move hardware. They're going to get games like Half-Life 2 to be exclusive to the Steam console, even if it's for like 3. What I don't know how they're gonna work, but I know for a fact that Gabe Newell understands console gaming, and the first thing that he's going to do is going to make sure that certain. It's the same reason when he's looking at the numbers right now for Steam Deck. Steam Deck is not even close to like they should at least be doing a third of what the Switch is doing as the biggest other platform that does mobile gaming, and they're not even close. They've only sold like 6 million. Like Nintendo does 6 million in like months, bro. Well, in like years, in like 2 years they'll do like 6 million. By the time they're in the 4th year, they're sitting at like 50, 60, 70 million. Steam is after 4 years almost is sitting at like fucking 6 to 7 million. Really? That's because it doesn't have exclusive experiences. It's just a PC. You need to say you can only find this, and this is what like Microsoft for me like what like I think Phil right now like and I blame this on Sarah Bond because this is all Sarah Bond's doing. Like
So wait, just I don't know if Steam will they do that. I mean, they kind of.
why wouldn't they, Ty? Like why wouldn't they?
Because has it always been their style?
No, but like, has their style sold them like tens of millions of units? Steam Deck is considered successful because it's competing against other fucking random Windows devices that don't have exclusive content. The main thing that's selling on Steam right now, which again, to Phil's point, is not enough, is the Steam, the Steam OS setup. But that's not enough to sell you consoles, dude. It's not selling you more consoles, or it's not selling you more Asus or Lenovo consoles. You still need to have something that's unique to your ecosystem. Dude, like, have you seen I'm sure you've seen this ad. Have you seen the latest Netflix ad?
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
With with the Asian lady in the office.
Yeah.
What is it selling, Tai?
Content.
And what is that content? Is that content available anywhere else?
Listen, I agree with you.
And I'm
the content
looking at
is
this.
good.
I'm looking at this. What is this? That you have on the screen right now.
Yeah, Netflix again. The
Yes, like this. Is this available on Disney Plus?
game. No.
Dude, like, why do people disrespect exclusive so much? I don't understand with that attitude, especially in our industry. That has been the lifeblood of every single big
You know, I
company
need
that you
to.
supported.
Oh gosh, I wish I didn't have such a bad headache. I feel like this conversation, I'm just like too slow to respond. But I need to talk to
No,
this.
it's fine. It's fine. Like,
I need to talk to this chick because she's getting annoyed now. So I'm gonna.
cool.
Are you?
No,
Are
it's
you,
all
are you
okay.
gonna? What are you gonna do now?
No. I'm gonna play games, dude. Like, I'm just gaming now, dude. I'm just enjoying my. I told you once I bought a new graphics card, so I'm enjoying my fucking good graphics. I bought a 3060 Ti, which is like